Greetings everyone and welcome to a new first stage for the channel where today we're going to be checking out Sandustry, a game that I have had an awful lot of fun with. I would not like anyone to know how many hours I've already sunk into this demo. The demo, in terms of its full completion, about 3 hours if you take your time and smell the roses. I have put very many more than 3 hours into the game though, and I am starting to question my life choices. I guess the best way of describing it is what might happen if you had Terraria plus Factorio plus Noita. It is basically a sandfall game, and hence the name Sandustry, but I'm sure many of you have checked them out, whether they were little tech toys, browser games, or something a little bit more robust. But effectively everything in this game has some degree of physics, and gravity is one of the major forces that are acting on things, but it isn't the only one. Well, hence the comparison to Noita, where certain elements will have interesting combination effects. This is an automation game, and if that is in your wheelhouse, then please do consider checking out the demo and maybe even clicking on the wishlist button. It goes a very long way for developers. But with that all said and done, we're going to be jumping into a new game. Now, despite the fact that I have played a fair bit, I'm not going to skip the tutorial as I think it sets up the game nicely. It's also extremely short as far as tutorials go. Right, okay, let's get our little spaceman to land on the planet. There's not much of a story in here yet. I can only imagine that when the game is out in full, we'll have a reason why we just, deploy to this planet and immediately start strip mining it, other than I guess because we're humans. Right, so WASD and jump to move around. There are many quality of life things that have been introduced since the game first dropped onto my radar, and many of you will not know the horrible reality of having to build your factories such that you could move around them because actual blocks blocked physics and thus blocked you. That being said, there is an option for hard mode if you are a masochist, and I can't say that I haven't played it on hard mode since that option was added, just to remind myself that I am in fact a masochist. But for the sake of brevity, we will not be doing that this time. I will be allowed to float through my factory as we go. So, starting off, we use our gun shovels to dig up some sand. There we go. We then use our grabber, grab the sand. And then we want to, well, we've picked up the sand, then we want to drop it into the water. This is dry sand. It is now wet sand. We'll grab a little bit more of that. There we go. Just move all of that along. Pretty much all of this game comes from, in some way, shifting dirt around. It's a very similar vibe to a little game about a robot mining gems that I'm sure some of you might remember. Pick up wet sand and shake it. Move the mouse back and forth, just in case you didn't know what shaking was, and you will find some gold. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got some gold. Let's just drop it into the cell box. Clonk. There we go. We'll do this some more. There we are. I very much appreciate the hover mode on my jetpack there. Very nice indeed. There we go. We've got our gold in the box. Let's just get this out of the way because it's going to be a problem later on. We can open the tech tree just after I'm finished cleaning up this slaggy mess over here. You don't want to allow the slag to build up too much over the water because it floats on water, which causes all kinds of physics issues. Right, so we want to buy refining. Unlock shakers that can separate gold and slag from wet sand. Build diagonally and drop wet sand on it. So our first step of automation. The next step is going to cost 50. Right, we can open the build menu with Q. We can build out some blocks. We are absolutely going to do that right now because I know what's coming. So we're going to go ahead and replace things. If you want to build over a tile, by the way, you can hold control and you'll simply replace the previous tile. And now we're going to build some shakers. This is not anything even approximate to an efficient setup. Please don't assume that it is. But for now, it is our setup and we love it. So we're going to build out a little bit more just to gather up the various gubbins. You can drag tiles and you can get nice little shapes. Those shapes will affect physics as one might imagine it would. There we go. We'll pop that up there. In fact, actually, we are going to go ahead and we're going to make this a little bit easier for myself because I am very lazy. The greatest motivator for automation. There we go. And then we'll just pop all of that over there. There we are, and that can make its way down. You notice how the shakers are occasionally shaking a little bit of gold out of it and then returning you the slag from the wet sand. There we go. And now our goal is to get up to logistics 1. Now, as we already saw, that is going to require 50 gold. And you know what? Rather than going over there, though, let me not waste that sand. There we are. We're just going to go through here and allow the water to already be where the sand is. There we go. Let's just drop all of this up there, and we have logistics ready. Let's go ahead and grab you. There we are. So from 50, we're up to 500. That's going to take us a little bit of time, but we do now have all sorts of new things. And this has unlocked the main objective now for the tutorial. And that is, for the demo. We want to find the 2 artifacts. Find artifacts. Once we found those, we have, quote, end quote, won the game. Though, as you can probably guess from the whole comment about having spent many more hours in this than those necessary to complete the game, that isn't where the game ends. You can keep playing and you can keep building factories and you can keep automating all of that great stuff. Press space while in the air to hover. Yes, we're already doing that. There you go. We've got to unlock guns, find fluxite, and find artifacts, and these will be knocked off the list as we go. Right, okay, so now then, we want to build some things, and in fact, I want to set some things up. The collector doesn't really need to be on my hotbar, and honestly, the shakers don't need to be, but conveyor belts absolutely do, and launchers absolutely do. These are things that I'm going to be using a lot. Let's get some things launched up here. Something like that should do quite comfortably. There we are. First little bit of automation for us. Now, this area over here, we're not going to be doing too much over here. We're not going to need to worry over much about it all, but let's be thorough, shall we? Though I can already see a bit of a problem occurring over here. So how about we make this a little bit more efficient, shall we? Sure, a little bit of early automation to get things on the move, eh? That would certainly not be unwelcome. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new gathering space for our gold, but then I'm going to make this gathering space a lot more efficient with gathering the gold. Oh, actually, I need to grab the shakers. I just said I was going to need them again, but here we are. Shows what I know. Right, we'll pop that in there. I would like this then to draw that across a little bit. And we are then going to have a launcher. Bring this back up. Ooh, that is the wrong thing. There we go. Let's use the hotkeys. It is much more responsive. We'll bring that up to about there. I would also like this just to lean. Can we have that lean down? Oh, I know what I've done. I have accidentally changed the type of build mode we're in. We need to press R. There we go. And that should work very nicely. We'll bring that down, bring this down, get rid of that. There you go. Nice and easy like. And we will add in another row of shakers. We want another conveyor belt right on here. We want to make sure the conveyor belts are going in the right direction. Kind of useless if they don't. And then bring that up there. And as you can see, we're starting to create a bit of a pattern here that will help us gather all of these gubbins together. Actually, we do want that up because we want to pop in collectors. Now, I'm going to only have the collectors go yay far. That should be good enough. And then we want a much larger place for stockpiling all of the, we'll just make that look pretty, all of the slag, because we're going to be building up quite a lot of it until we can use it. So let's just go ahead and do something like this. That'll do very nicely. And now I want all of this to be taken up there instead. So let's just adjust the launcher here. Gonna need to get rid of these first to make sure that they're working correctly. And then a conveyor belt to just take it over to this edge. And there we go. That should do everything we need. Now, I would like to be super lazy over here. Again, lazy is one of the main driving forces of automation, I feel. And we're going to... Actually, let's pop it down there. We'll give a little bit of clearance. And I want all of this slag to be moved over there. Nice and fast, like so. There we are. That's going to take a lot of pressure off me. For the sake of, once again, lazy, I'm going to have this just launch all of that slag on this side up and back through the system until it is all cleared out. There you go. And we're done, more or less. That should clear all of this up. We can get rid of... Ooh, wrong place there. We can get rid of all of this now. Don't need it here. And in fact, the gold can be collected. I quite like that if the gold isn't in one of the vault tiles, it doesn't count as gold. There we go. Let's grab all of that. You may notice that when I pick up an item, you can only hold one item in your grabber at a time. That is something that you will probably find yourself using to make certain systems work at all later on in the game. There we go. Let's grab all of that. And we are done with all of this. Now we can clear that out. There we go. And we are sorted. Right, let's just seal that back up because, again, probably going to be sending quite a lot of gold up there. Rather, we're going to be sending quite a lot of slag into that one little spot. Now, back to the very important job of getting all of this up there and getting us up to the lofty goal of 500, which is not lofty at all. You will very quickly realize that that is actually an extremely generous early goal. Now, one of the tricks to building is the game doesn't really like building, placing a tile if there's already materials there. Now, you can move some things around, and as long as there is a tile queued to be placed, it's not going to move something back into that tile. It'll understand that, hey, this tile is just waiting to be filled with something. Water can sometimes be a little bit of a problem with that, though. But in this case, hasn't been. Very nice. Okay, we'll allow everything to move up there, and I can make a little launcher down here just to clear out this little spot. Make sure that nothing gets stuck in there. There we go. And we'll launch everything on this side right over onto the launcher. That way, everything should, with time, be in the right place. Some of it's going to end up over here, which is not exactly what I want, but I can live with it. Now, honestly, using the launchers like this is kind of ultra lazy mode, and I don't think it's a very good habit to have, but for now, because I know what's coming up, I'm going to just throw that in because it is very easy to set those up rather than try and create a proper uncloggable network of belts, because they do very quickly get clogged. But we're going to be moving away from this little area fairly soon. That being said, though, doesn't mean I'm not going to explore and try and get every last little bit of sand that I can. There we go. And whilst all of that is happening, we will now start yoinking all of this over there and allow it to be grabbed by my launcher. Do not fall in that hole. We will find out why that would be awful for me later on. There we go. And that is all on the move. Now, if we have a look over there, everything seems to be working okay. Actually, it's trickling in very slowly there. You know what? Let's make that a little bit better then, shall we? Let's bring the conveyor belt all the way across. There we go. And then we can just grab that little bottom bit. That should deliver way more across, because that was definitely holding things up a little bit. Gravity is not as powerful as conveyor. Well, of course, it's more powerful than conveyors, but it doesn't tend to move things sideways quite as quickly as the conveyors will, at the very least. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about power. Lottie's Cave. Now, everything in here is destructible, but why would you do that, you monster? Let Lottie's Cave be. I can only assume that Lottie is perhaps the dev's cat, so we will leave the dev's cat cave alone. That seems like just a good plan all round, honestly. Now, we're starting to run out of water down here, which is going to be a problem for us, as you can imagine, because dry sand does not gold or slag create. But we will very, very quickly be able to resolve that. In fact, I should probably already start that process while we're already starting to see some of the wet sand building up over there. That's a bit of an interesting one. You know what? That is happening because this is throwing that wet sand a little bit too far forward. So how about we do something like that? Just make sure this sand does in fact hit the correct spot and goes through the whole system, because otherwise, if the wet sand landed all the way over here, it would only have a very small opportunity to get processed properly. I want that last little bit of sand down there. There we go. Nice and clear. Now, this little system over here, I mean, it's not great. It'll get the job done, but slowly. We've got an awful lot of water over here, an awful lot more soil over here as well. So I think we're going to set up a little system a little bit more expandable than this one. The dry sand is now clogging these up because the wet sand can't get down to it. which is, of course, kind of an issue. We will hopefully be able to resolve that in a moment by making a bit of more of a robust system. So give me just a moment to imagine something a little bit better. Okay, now there's a couple of things that are going on here that I want to touch on, specifically this. In my experience, anything that affects or interacts with the grains above it can interact with an entire cell's worth of grains above it. So in the case of the shaker, as long as there is wet sand somewhere in this tile, not this one, it should be able to process through. It's not an exact science, and there are some edge cases where that isn't the case, but by and large, it certainly seems to work better as long as you try to make sure that anything that is going to be interacted on it is the only one tile higher up. So whenever I'm launching items onto a belt, I kind of want to compress it, just make sure that it'll get jammed in and then slowly filtered into just a single cell's height on that belt moving forward. Now what we've got here is things will be dropped down and shaken through. Gold will move through and slag will carry on down, and will keep on going down the route until whilst the gold is ferried off to the side. However, it's going to be a lot easier if I just replicate this. So I'm just going to grab everything that I have gotten here. More or less. Actually, I'm going to need to add down just one more layer, I think. Yeah, one extra layer. So this, if you hold down shift and grab, you can move it. Now, if you hold C, you can copy it, but if you just drag it, then you will literally move the tile, and that is not always what you want to do, but that should be perfect. And I'm going to now copy this once again, grab, copy down, and there we go. We've got a nice 4 stacker. This should, in theory, get rid of anything that is going through, and the only thing that will be left on this side then will be slag. So we don't need this component here. At this stage, the slag needs to move in that direction, but gold is still potentially dropping out on this side, and that is something we very much want. So let's continue adding all of this in there, and the slag will then move across in this direction, whilst the gold will move across in this direction to some distant collection area. But the slag, we very much want to collect about here, I would say. Let's go ahead and make a nice big collection area for it. In non-hard mode, we can move through these blocks, but if this was in hard mode, we would need to consider building the factory in such a way that we would be able to move through these walls, not build ourselves into a cube, so on and so forth. But certainly for the first taste, we'll just do it this way. Now, generally speaking, I would say deliver whatever you're dropping into the middle, because it'll spread out on either side, whereas if it only gets dropped off there, it'll slowly filter across to the side, but then we'll start falling back into the room behind it, which is not exactly what you want. And you know what? We should probably do this once again. Let's just grab that, shimmy this over to about here. Sure, there we go. Gonna have to make gonna have to make some small adjustments there just to make sure that that all fits in. There we are. That should take care of all of the slag that we want. Now, what I need is for everything here to be delivered into this area and then piled up. Now, I'm going to just turn off hover mode. It is a lot easier to sync when you're not hovering. It probably needs no explanation, but nevertheless, I find myself quite often forgetting it. That says way more about me than anyone else. There we go. There we are. I would also like any items that just kind of get deposited on this side to be moved across. However, over here, we absolutely want to find a spot where I can build a conveyor. Well, actually, a conveyor down here is going to be a little bit more of a problem, because trying to build a conveyor through water is going to be an issue. So instead, I'm just going to make a long line of these just to shimmy stuff along. Not the best design, in my opinion, and later on we will absolutely move away from even using this puddle of water down here, but for now it is pretty much our only option, so we're just gonna have to work with it until we can move our setup elsewhere. That should be good enough for everything that we're going to be doing. Now then, we want to bring all of the materials across. Just drop it in the middle there somewhere. That it will not allow you to build on yourself no matter what mode you're in, that I have seen. That might not always be the case. Over here, I would kind of like to turn all of this into a gold collection area. It's not where we're going to be putting this at the end, but for now it'll work. Don't need any of that for now. Actually, we should do away with this and just collapse this whole thing onto this conveyor. There we go. Very satisfying indeed. A massive mountain of slag that is going to cause problems because it floats. That is actually genuinely an issue that I should have considered, and I am going to be very sad that I did not already build into the plan. But here we are. There we go. We're going to move all of this along and probably have the gold being gathered, I don't know, somewhere over here maybe. Let's build up a little wall back here just to create a place where I can then lob the gold into. Something along these lines should work nicely. And we'll just have a little shelf there. And down here, bring all of this along. And this can be our massive Scrooge McDuckian vault that we will absolutely not try to swim in because gold is a solid, not a liquid. There we go. Well, I mean, if it's in its liquid state, you also don't want to swim in it for different reasons, really. Right, with that done, we're going to be able to go over there in a moment and see the horrible mess that we've created. But for now, we get to listen to the extremely satisfying sound of all of our things building. Right, have we got anything more down here that we want to shift? Yes, just a couple more things. We'll just move those up manually, though. And then we'll delete all of this away. You don't strictly need to. I don't think there's any kind of limitation that's imposed by having all of these devices. I've certainly not noticed it cause the simulation to run worse or anything like that, but for now, let's just go ahead and shimmy all that along. There's a tiny little grain of sand there, and I refuse to allow it to stay. There we go. Now we can get rid of all of this all in one go. There we are. Not quite as satisfying as building things, but, you know, I'll take it for now. Right. Let's follow along our mess that is going to be created over this. Oh, my lord. That is also not how water works. You know what? We'll take it. The slag is actually being delivered, thankfully. So that isn't the worst that it could be. And the gold will eventually be delivered as well and will filter through. The gold will move through the shakers just as well as wet sand will shake the gold out of it. So if you just drop gold on there, it'll just move through as though the wet sand had been placed there first. But everything down here should now start moving where it needs to be. Let's help things out just a little smidge, shall we? I shouldn't have allowed it all to go through there because it is probably going to have caused me a little bit of a problem back there, but well, it's fine. We will get through it. But now all of the dry sand can make its way across, and that is the important part. There we are. Let's just get all of this slag out of this water so it can move properly. And so again, this is not quite how water works, but this isn't the first or only way that we're going to be encountering water that doesn't quite behave the way one would imagine it should. Now, one thing I am seeing down here is there is a bit of a problem. Can I get these blocks to work down there? Possibly not for now. Eventually, we will work through this water. Like you can see over there that the water is actually draining and it's not being replaced. I would actually kind of like that to work, but you know what? It'll work for now, and for now is good enough. Right, let's shimmy this along. It is time for us to get some more dirt. Now, this area is going to be fairly expansive. The game has quite a lot of exploration in it, but obviously once you've explored it once, you flat out know where everything is. That being said, I have no idea if there are plans to make this game more of a procedural experience or like different worlds, different puzzles to solve. I could certainly see it going in either one of those directions and it would be just as satisfying. But let's go ahead and mine out a little bit over here, and then we're going to start getting the automation up and running as it should. You know what? The first thing I should do, and this is something that I would recommend everyone do, just sink a single shaft. Just go down, dig your whole way down until you hit something you can't dig through, and that will be your elevator from that point forward. You can already see that I kind of knew where I needed to dig for this. Again, I have played this way more than I should have for a demo, but here we are. If anything, just take it as a point of confidence that the game is absolutely worth your time. But there we are. Let's just grab all of this, shimmy it over, allow the launchers to do their thing for now. There we go. And we will add in a new launcher just down here. Thankfully, you can build the launchers pretty much in either direction, and they will totally do what they need to do. You don't need to worry too much about that one, but that will take care of a load of dry sand. And finally, all of this gold will eventually get to where it needs to be. Now, obviously, right now, until it is there, we're not getting credit for that gold, but you can see up in the top left that it is starting to reach over there, and it's starting to credit me with the gold that we previously had, and we'll add a lot more to it by the time that we're done. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dig... we dug a line straight down. Now we are digging a line straight across, and you can probably already imagine exactly why I'm doing this. It probably needs no explanation, so instead I will simply show you the result when I'm done with it. There we go. All right, so with the conveyor belt and launcher in place, it is time for us to start getting things set up in the correct location a little bit faster. We'll pop in a little launcher there just to make sure that everything gets popped back onto the belt. And now we have the extremely satisfying job of just digging out everything over here and just feeding it down onto the belt so it can get filtered into the giant puddle over to our right. There we go. This is so much more efficient now than digging this and moving it all by hand. There we are. We'll just grab this whole section. Now, some of the sand will spill underneath the conveyor belts, and I'm personally quite finicky about dealing with that, but a couple of pixels here and there. There is so much in the game. Also, we will find all kinds of little lakes like that. There is so much in this game. You will not ever run out of sand in a normal playthrough, certainly not in the demo, at the very least, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're not a big fan of having to worry about those sort of things, just don't. I do, because for some weird masochistic reason I actually find it quite fun. I experience a sense of accomplishment knowing that I have literally mined out every single pixel of sand on the map. There is one type of material that I have yet to find a way to mine out every single pixel of, and it haunts my dreams, possibly why I've put so many hours into the game. And maybe that is just a smart move by the developer, I don't know. Personally, I call it an inventive way of torturing someone, but there we are. Potato, potato, I suppose. Never mind. Let's get the rest of this done, and I shall bring you back when all of our sand is ready to be turned into an awful lot of coin, and we're ready to unlock the very next technology. And we're not actually far away from that, so it probably won't be too long. Okay, there we go. Our sand is slowly, ever so slowly, being delivered to the pit, and then being delivered as gold to our massive vault. However, as you can see, the slag situation is getting worse. We are actually finding some wet sand making it all the way down here. I don't think we actually needed the fourth one. 3 was probably enough to take care of everything. Nevertheless, we are definitely going to need to expand this out. So let's go ahead and just deal with that problem before it becomes a big problem. There we are, and we'll have a very satisfying moment with all the slag just redistributing itself. And let's just follow that up by sliding that across. Now, we are going to have lots of ways of dealing with this in the future. In fact, one of them might be right around the corner. Let's get guns unlocked. Unlock the gun. Damage type mining. As we all know, guns are well known for their mining capability. Now, down here we've got a couple of choices. We've got refining 2, unlocks kinetic slag press to further process burnt slag. Very important one to pay attention to there. Slag is not burnt slag. Filters. Unlocks filters that work like conveyor belts, but can allow certain elements to pass through. This is where automation really starts to rocket off. So we are actually going to immediately research that one. There we go. And that leads on to pipes. Unlocks pipes, pumps, and liquid vents. Something we're definitely going to want. But before we get there, tools. Unlocks the flamethrower. To burn slag, melt ice, and vaporize water into steam that rises and becomes rain. We are definitely going to need this. In fact, a lot of the game systems are going to rely on it. Now, let me quickly sort out my equipment down here, because it's kind of all over the place. Generally speaking, I'm going... Sure, we'll have the grabber swap around there. I'm going to want the gun following that up, and then the flamethrower. But I still want my building blocks, so we'll have the ones that I use the most. We're not going to use shakers very much, but we do use launchers a lot, and we will be making an awful lot of use of filters. But let's go ahead and get the flamethrower to use. As you already saw, slag and burn slag are different things. Well, let's just try and make some of the latter there. You're not going to convert it one-to-one. In fact, it's very much worse than one-to-one, but in many ways, that's actually beneficial to us. We don't want a massive collection of burnt slag or slag building up. What I would like to do now is to actually choose burnt slag as a filter. Allow only the selected element through. Block selected element, allow everything else through. We definitely want burnt slag to be allowed through. We're going to create a little collection area for slag. So there we are. Only burnt slag will be able to move through this, but otherwise it's going to be shimming everything else across in this direction. Once it's done that job, I want this to seal things off. Let's allow everything through there. There we go. And I'm going to want to grab all the slag that is just built up in these tiles. There we go. Might need to change that out a little bit. That's fine though. Something like this should do nicely. We don't need to take it that tall. Now, filter down here, we only want wet sand in here. So I'm going to set one up for wet sand specifically. Only wet sand should enter this system. If it's anything else, it should continue on down the line. We will have this right there. I think that should be fine. Should be able to just pull that out of the way. There we are. Just drop that there. As you can see, the slag is now moving through. But likewise, kind of don't want any dry sand. Dry sand should never enter this system. So with that in mind, let's do a little bit of something else. I want to block the selected element, but allow everything else. Gold. Block everything but gold. And please do it like that. There we go. Now, if anything falls down here and there isn't gold, this is going to carry on falling and will be reintroduced into the pit down there or onto this conveyor, which inevitably takes it to the pit. Next, I want this to be for allow through dry sand. Regular sand should never get up here. If it does, that's a problem, and I want it to go back down into the water and get filtered back up through. There we go. That should all take care of things. Now, there is one caveat over here, in that I do actually want gold to get through as well. Now, I could either have the gold go through here, which is what we've been doing up to now, or I could set up gold there. So we've got sand, gold. At this point, we should be able to get all of that through the system. If I made it a little bit longer, it probably would be a little bit safer, though. But this should, I think, work. We will hope. Now, all of this is just going to pile up, and the reason why I've done it like this is so that we can have a redistribution inside this area. Let's go ahead and have a little bit of something right there. And we're going to bring this across here. I'm going to want regular slag to move through. Only regular slag, though. There we go. That should be able to all be entered into here now. And I think we're going to take this away, because at this point, this should only be regular slag getting down here. So we no longer need that up at this level. In fact, I can probably just do away with all of this, pull that all the way down. There we go. And we are instead going to have something very similar to the other side that we've got there. There we go. That looks quite nice to me. And we can do a little bit of something, make this look a bit more intentioned. There we are. And as I've mentioned elsewhere, that anything that operates on trying to sift through an element will only operate on the tile above it. So I want to compress everything down to a single tile by this point, so that if any burnt slag is there, it will get to pass through. And on that note, let's go ahead and make some more burnt slag. There we go. Let's just get that fire moving. There we are. Perfect. And that should take care of all of that slag for us. That will move up. It'll create enough room to get everything else on the move. Let's get that out of the way. There we are. Marvelous. Right. We want a regular conveyor belt there. And we are now starting to get into the proper automation age. And I'm extremely excited for this part. Now, the fire has already run its course. That's perfectly fine. We don't need it to be doing anything more than that. But we don't really want the burnt slag to continue down here. We actually want to take that elsewhere. So let's go ahead and just set up a conveyor belt. This shouldn't really be where it's at, but it is for now, and we're just going to have to leave it there. That's quite a lot of gold making its way through, though. So let's go ahead and jump over to research and see what we can get done. Now, I could go for tools too, which gives us the vacuum to move piles of sand. It is actually a very useful tool, but not something we strictly need, and lights is purely aesthetic. What we really want is this, unlocking the kinetic slag press to further process burnt slag into gold, and we're actually not very far off it. By the time all of that gets through, we should be good, but I've got work to do in the meantime. There's always something more that you can be doing in this game. That's one of the things I really love about it. So with that done, let's go and check out the gun. I know there's been a couple of you that have been looking forward to this. Now, you can use the gun for mining, as it says, but initially it's not the best. It does take some time to do anything. Well, to get through tiles the same way the digging tool does. The digging tool is a specific tool for a very specific job, and as such, it does it very, very well. Okay, now, cutting through this section, we find a new body of water, which we can use to some effect to help us get all of the sand down here pre-wet for the rest of the factory. We'll switch back over to the digging tool. Honestly, until much later, the digging tool is my preferred way of digging. I know the gun does have a few areas where it is still useful, even early on, specifically areas where you're having to try and mine something quite far away, or where you wouldn't be able to fit through in order to do the mining, something I will be showcasing in just a moment. But right now, the digging tool is way, way better. And with upgrades, it goes pretty hard for the rest of the game, honestly. You have to get fairly late game, or at least the way I tend to play, before the gun starts to replace the digging tool for the job. Right, let's make sure that the last little bits over here don't ever get stuck. We shouldn't experience any items ever getting quite that far, but you never know. Let's just get that all moving up. There we are. Marvelous. Now, on the topic of stuff that we will be using the gun for, this isn't it, but since we're already over here, let's go ahead and mine this out. This is fluxite. We have now found it. That's one of the main jobs that we needed to do, and I will show you why this is so important. And this is where gold stops being the most important thing. We are going to get that in fairly small amounts for a long time, and it is going to suck because it's so good. But we are pretty much going to be trying to create a factory that can manage gathering these items. Oh, actually, that did manage to throw some items over there, so I probably want to change that up a little. Ah, I see. Let's do something like that, just to make sure that we don't have to worry about that too much. By the way, if you're wondering how I'm switching these around, if you hold down shift whilst placing an item, it will reverse its orientation, which can be used to make building way more easier. But generally speaking, the slopes are always trying to move downwards in some way, so depending on where you start building, the slope is what's going to affect how that moves around. There we go, and I will add a last little launcher just there, just to make sure that things don't get too far across there. That should take care of everything for us. Right, now, with the fluxite, we can go into upgrades. Now, with upgrades, we want to melt ice, vaporize water, and upgrade the grabber. So, if we go into weapons and tools, the grabber is this. Material scanner shows more information about materials when hovering over them. This is actually huge. You only have one level of that one. Hydro sponge, pick up water above ground only, so we won't be able to do that in caves, and that's worth 200. Is there anything else I can pick up quick 200? No. But, well, okay, fine, I'll take it. It is kind of useful. Right, so now if we've got the grabber, if we hover over something, sand, soil. Down here, interact with mining or explosive. Bedrock, can't interact with. Ice, interact with flame. Over here, crackstone, interact only with explosives. So our gun, which does mining damage, and our digger, which does mining damage, are completely useless about getting through crackstone. We're going to need an entirely different type of tool to get through that. And it's going to be a while until we get it, and that's going to be a pretty common theme for us moving forward. But for now, let me go ahead and just dig all the way down here. You can notice little arrows to the left, to the right, just showing you a vague hint of where perhaps you should be looking to explore. And one of these places we're going to be getting onto right away, but I do want to get the elevator that we're building over here set up and running, so I can forget about this for a little bit and just allow the factory to gather all of the goodies. We are up to 1,600 odd money, and that is quite good for what we're going to be working on next. There we go. That should be good enough for now. Let's just send all of this sand up to the rest of the factory via the launcher, and we can forget about that for a little bit. Over here, let's have a look at this. This can be gone through mining, explosive, or fire. Well, wherever fire can be used, I would prefer to use it. So let's do that from out here. Pow. The nice thing about fire is, generally speaking, if something can be affected by fire, it spreads. Now, this is the first little puzzle. My jetpack works right now. Certain things do not. My grabber does not, you may notice. If I try to go over here, my jetpack stops working. Very sad. However, it does work here, so we can get back up. I can only imagine that in playtesting, enough people couldn't work out how to get out of there. They actually had to add in an arrow again. But one of the things that we can look at over here is frostbed. Interact with mining or explosive. Well, we've got mining, and this is one of the first instances where you actually need the gun, because generally speaking, you can't get up there with the jetpack. It won't let you. So we need to shoot this. There we go. And immediately, as soon as the frostbed touches water, it freezes it. I'm not sure if there are many other things that it'll interact with. I know of at least one more, but again, despite the hours that I've put into the game, there's constantly more things that I'm discovering. But this is snow. It interacts with fire, and this is ice. This also interacts with fire. We're not going to interact with either of them just yet. Instead, we're going to go over here, and we're going to use our flamethrower. Can I? You cannot use the flamethrower. That's just annoying. Okay, fine. I'll do it with my regular digging tool then. There are a couple of little puzzle zones like that around which restricts which tools you can use. But this is the very first of the artifacts and the easiest one to acquire. None of them are particularly hard, I must say. But the others can be a little bit more involved. Now, we can also see what's going on over on this side. We can't quite get up there, or can we? No, this area completely shuts down the jetpack, so we can't get to that water. We can't get to the other gubbins that are on the side of that crack zone until we've got something which will allow us to use a explosive style weapon. Also, over on this side, because backups do happen, I generally prefer to create a little bit of a lip that will ideally prevent the worst of it. So let's pop that there. Oh, okay, let's get rid of that then and pop that there. I can see particles of wet sand dancing around over on the side, and that's exactly where we're going to go to now, because it is high time for us to unlock the next item, and that is refining 2. Let's get that on the go. Now, guns 2 will unlock the rocket launcher, which gives us the aforementioned explosive damage type. Refining 3 unlocks the planter boxes. Honestly, these are basically the end boss of this game, in my opinion. They are so they require so many weird shenanigans to get to work right, and they can break in such annoying ways, though they are greatly improved from where they were when the demo first dropped. These genuinely were the end boss of the game, and quite often I restarted just because I got tired of trying to deal with them. Not that I didn't understand them. The understanding part is very easy. It's getting them not to ruin hours of very careful, meticulous sorting just because they enjoy watching the world burn, and themselves. I spent quite a few therapeutic moments burning the plants down, but it's never enough, ever. So just understand that don't feel too bad if you get to that point and it makes you want to pull all of your hair out. That being said, if you get there and it's completely easy for you, well, it's probably because the game has gotten better, not because I'm awful at it. And if it is proven that I am awful, just keep it to yourself. I don't need to know. All right, there we are. Let's free this little area up. But now we do have something to do with all of this burnt slag, and that's going to be very important. So let's do a little bit of something, shall we? Right, we have the new component, and that is this, the kinetic slag press. You notice it's quite a long way down. Let's go into the build mode so we can have a look at this. Drop burnt slag on the kinetic slag press from a great height. And this will refine it into gold and spores. The height that we need is very handily demonstrated for us right there. So let's go ahead and set up a couple of these. Now, the tricky thing with this is that, generally speaking, if it's introduced slowly, it'll work fine. But if you dump a lot of it into this, and I will quickly demonstrate this for you. If I grab this right now, and I go like this, only a little bit got through. But the rest stopped because this landed on top of other slag, and thus it didn't hit the kinetic slag press from a great height. Now, I've got all kinds of gubbins that's moving through here that I don't want to be there, and I need somewhere to put it, so I'm just going to pop it there for right now. Please don't at me. I know it's not in the right place. Also want that spore. Let's not allow any spores to get through there, please and thank you. There we go. Thankfully, spores sink below burnt slag. And actually, that is a bit of a advice that I'd like to offer. If you're starting out the game, I already have a good idea of what the relative densities of all the items are. Just make a little testing vat where you put a tiny amount of everything, just so you can see where it settles, where its density evens out, because that is going to be very, very important information for you moving forward as you design systems. Now, because of this, there are a couple of ways that you can set this up to prevent this problem from occurring. One of them is to have another filter, specifically for burnt slag. And you can have that filter, for example, right there. The filter will slow things down a bit. So let's go, actually, yeah, let's just demonstrate it. So this will go through. You notice how it's dropping much more slowly now. Generally speaking, that will not clog up, but there is still a small chance that it will. Very, very occasionally, it will still manage to get through. But I would rather build a very robust system that is never going to have any struggle with this. So my advice to you to get past that is to create a tiny little jumper system that will occasionally catch the item. There we go. Once again, I forgot to use the hotkeys there. Just a little jumper system that'll constantly shimmy things across to the side. And at that point, create a tiny little chute just to let things drop out. There we go. So at this point, in fact, you could probably bring this down one more like that, and you've got a very, very simple little fix. Now let's just demonstrate this. Let's grab this again. It's probably not going to work with this particular setup, so let me just drop in quite a lot and see if it ever does manage to accumulate. Right now, it's not going to do it. And to be fair, under normal operation, it probably can't with just that. However, there is one very important caveat to this. When the game autosaves, or when you save it, if a grain of burnt slag is already making its way through this press, when the game loads, it does not save momentum data. So when it loads, that grain of burnt slag will consider it's the start of its fall from being here. As such, even with this system, which is drop feeding items in, it will start at only halfway and it'll drop down. It won't have fallen far enough, and now it's going to start clogging everything else. So effectively what would happen is the example of this. That happens. So having this little dropper just saves you a headache and gets everything back out and into the system where it's meant to be. That being said, it shouldn't be over here, but we're just going to move that. And over here instead, we're going to introduce another little conveyor. This conveyor is going to be to bring things back over here. And actually, you know what? Let's do this a little bit differently. At this point, I would like only sand to fall through here, because anything else shouldn't be being introduced into the water. So we'll just put sand along there, and instead we will have this allow items to be just directly introduced. If it isn't sand, then it should just be dropped in there. We'll try and limit how much of it can get through, but then that can filter back up. That'll keep things nice and simple for us. I will add in a little bit of a line over here, like so, just to bring things along. I'll just bring it all the way across there. And this can go back to blocking everything but gold. There we are. And that is going to keep this nice and simple for us. There we are. And now I just move that along. We can very easily just remove this for now. All of this slag is going to move through, but it will be reintroduced into the system, which is fine. There we go. We'll grab that, get rid of that as well. And now we can move this whole system across as one complete functioning system. And there we are. And it will just go in about there. Marvelous. Now we just need a conveyor belt. And that should bring everything through. The spores will fall straight through here. But in this particular instance, I don't want that to be the case. So I'm going to block everything but spores. So the regular dry spores can just move along to about here. And then they can be moved back into the system. We'll probably put something like that up here. And this is going to be a pretty usual thing for us moving forward. We're just going to find a new material and then create a new stockpile area for it until I have the opportunity to showcase how it's meant to be processed, which usually is going to be at the end of some research. But we are going to have a lot of spores building up. Just an FYI on that one. An awful lot of spores building up. So we'll make this nice and big. There we go. And just add that in there. There we are. Nice and easy. Allow everything. Allow spores through here. There we go. And that should do everything. Spores are being filtered through. The gold is getting filtered into this. And again, because we've got this tile there, it should be filtered through properly. That being said, the slag the slag might get caught there. Hadn't considered that. In fact, I think I already just saw some of that happen. So, with that in mind, I am actually going to have to move this along a little bit, just to give more time for the slag to be processed. So, let's go ahead and grab all of this. And just shimmy this along. Maybe... yeah, sure, that far should be good enough for us. There we go. It has caused some issues, but that's okay. Let's just grab these, move them out of the way. And set the system back up again. There you go. At least that makes use of the space a little bit. But as you can see, that slag is actually going to have to wait a while before it can move through. So I'm just going to shimmy that right now. There we go. Drop that in here. That should get reprocessed. But yeah, we're gathering an awful lot of slag very, very quickly. If you want to grab a specific thing, just move your cursor over the item you want to grab. In this case, burnt slag, right about there, I think. Yep, there we are. Grab you as well, and drop you in there. Okay, that'll get shimmied down. Eventually, all the burnt slag that we've built up is going to stop moving through. It's going to take a while, though, but it will eventually manage to do it. Ooh, wait a second. As you can probably already see, we've already encountered a bit of a problem there. And that problem is that over here, which is probably the first place where something other than gold might show up, we had a little bit of a bit of burnt slag just piggybacking its way through. So let's make sure that each of these locations has something that's going to force it into a single tile. There we go. All the way through. And we'll just delete these last little bits to make sure that they don't get in the way. But as soon as it is only one tile high, the filter can grab hold of it and filter it back through, which is perfect. There we are. All should be well. Okay, we're making plenty more cash, and we're almost through all of the burnt slag, which is actually glorious. At that point, this will get to filter through the system. It may clog up a little bit, but it will unclog itself, and that's really the only thing that I was looking for here. I wanted to make sure that this whole system was capable of unclogging itself, though interestingly, that one almost didn't make it through in time. But there we are. Now the clog is cleared, and we're just converted everything into gold and into spores. Happy days. The last little thing I could do, I guess, is just set fire to that. Just get that on the move. Now, let's go and have a quick look at how much water we've got left. Not a lot, I will say. By the way, you can only move through things if you're hovering. You do actually need hover mode enabled to make that work. Oops, that is very much the wrong place. Let's get rid of that. There we go. I just figured I may as well move this down a little bit. There we go. Nice. But we want a little bit more water. Well, we do have quite a lot of water around the map that we can go and tap into. There are ways of duplicating water. Before you ask, before you worry, you can absolutely create an infinite water generator. It's relatively simple, though you do need the rocket launcher to set it up. But it just relies on the fact that sometimes whilst water is converting into steam and then back into water, there's kind of a bit of a duplication glitch. Occasionally you'll get a little bit more water back than you invested in the system. And talking about steam, let's get that on the go. I need some flames going through here. We are now converting this water into steam, rising up through the system, and it will rain back down as water. Now, a lot of it will make it back into this system, which I will demonstrate in a moment when we start seeing rainwater coming back down through the spout from the steam, or filling up the little entryway on the left there. And you can also see the what was this called again? It actually doesn't have a name. Okay, well, that's going to slowly burn its way through. But you can see the water coming back down now. You can also see another reservoir down there that we will get to. Now, this place has quite a lot of water in reserve that you can get back into the system. But what we want is for the water to end up down here specifically. Though I don't mind it only filling up on this level, which is why I moved the walls down there a little bit. But to get that to work, you're going to need to deal with the steam. Specifically, I want the steam to make its way down here, thereabouts. Now, there is a little bit of an issue with steam that I will cover in just a moment, and water specifically, is they can leak through the corners. So you really do want to make sure that you make the corners double thick. Now, over on this side, can we find a spot where the steam would be able to build up? That should work, I think. And we want it to come across there. And we just want this steam to make its way up and then up around in that direction. I should be able to grab that water thanks to the sponge attachment, since we don't really want this water moving back down on this side. And it kind of is at the moment, which is not ideal. So what we can do instead is add this over there. Bring that back. That should work perfectly. The steam will move up into the sky, turn into water. It might rain down a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, depending on how the steam moved, but this whole section should always bring it back onto here, and thus back down into the lake for us. I can probably grab that as well. Just move this around. That makes it so much easier. Actually, you know what? I haven't given that upgrade enough credit. It is a brilliant upgrade. But I did espy a certain amount of gubbins to the side. The next one we're going to want then is, well, pipes is probably high on the list of things. But we can get the planter box. No, I'm not going to do that to me right now. I'm going to preserve my sanity for a little while longer and instead pick up the rocket launcher. We're not going to be able to grab that water, sadly, but that's okay. Right, what we can do now, though, is go ahead and set up the rocket launcher. All right, so I'm going to move these along. We're probably not going to be using the kinetic slag press from this point forward. So instead, I will pop the regular blocks back in that spot. The rocket launcher. Let's go and have a look at you. A rocket launcher for digging big holes. Damage type explosive. Let me demonstrate. We do not get much ammo. Pop. And again, notice the rocket starts slow, but then speeds up. Takes a long while for these rockets to regenerate, however. At least right now. Let's try and pop that block, please. Thank you. My lord, it takes a long time for this to get through. But this is another area where you basically need a weapon system in order to do this, because you cannot do it yourself. We'll just launch all the rockets that I can. There we go. Very nice. And continue digging through. I think we may have actually reached... Oh, no, we haven't quite reached the end there. There we go. Little bit of extra fluxite. Can I afford to upgrade anything with that? No, I think 500 is what I need. The thrust amplifier increases the movement speed, and this comes back to what I was talking about earlier about being rewarded with things that just make your life feel easier. It's a bit of a weird one because you're artificially being held back so that when you get the reward, it feels like you accomplished something. But to be honest, that's pretty much what games are. They're just ways of tricking your brain into feeling like you've been productive. I'm sorry that I just called everyone who's watching this video out, but I did. And you know, I know. Look, we're in this lie together, okay? As long as we acknowledge that it's there and that we don't care that it's there, it has no power over us. Right. Now, with that done, let's go ahead and continue digging through here. Unfortunately, we've got a bunch of water, which has kind of scuppered my plans of getting through this nice and easily, but I should be able to turn it all into steam and continue the burning. There we go. And that steam can make its way out. No, I can't burn through that material, unfortunately. But I can see a certain bit of something over yonder that I have been working my way towards, and I hope to reach again. There we go. We have been over on this side before. Let's get through. We've now got enough water, I think, on that side that we should be good. Right. One thing the rocket excels at is digging dirt, amongst many other things that it excels at. But oh my lord, it is so good for excavating. But I will say that the digging tool and the gun, especially the upgraded gun, do kind of have it beat. But it is fantastic if you've just got a certain bit of space that you want to gain access to. I'm not going to be using this sand just yet. We will, obviously, in time. But first, we're going to come through here, connect up to all this water, allow it to do its thing, and then get over towards, I believe this is frostbed, actually. So we're going to need to use the rocket for that. Well, I mean, we don't need to, but it's going to be much easier. There we go. Now, you may notice that the rockets, when they explode, they seem to have a bit of an effect of flames. You notice how we've got steam here because the rockets have introduced a fair bit of heat to the situation. Now, let's get through all of this frostbed. Melting through the snow is a lot easier than doing anything else. Just get through the snow. It will create some steam. You can pick up steam, interestingly enough, just with your grabber and move it around. And it didn't used to be that way, which was actually a massive pain. But this is greatly improved over the state that the demo was in initially. A lot of quality of life things have been added in to make this job a hell of a lot easier. There we go. Let's get through all of that snow. It is going to be a bit of a potch, but this also unlocks a whole area down here that I would very much like to get to. There we are. Let's just melt all of that ice all in one go. And I'm just going to clear this area out. Get rid of all that frostbed, please. Now, that's actually going to allow me to showcase a little bit of something that you might want to consider when it comes to the design of your conveyors and your walls. Whilst they do make a lot of things a lot easier and a lot nicer to work with, they can be an impediment if steam builds up, because steam is, in many ways, treated as a solid. And that can have some dire effects. Let me go and get some more sand in the system, though, before we continue on with all of this. I will bring you back when we've got sand moving up through here and back into the factory, and I will cover the problems of steam. I love rockets. They're slow, but I love them. We've already gone through all of that water that built up, sadly. Oh well. If we have a look down here, that's all doing its job quite nicely. The dry sand is moving through as intended. We've got gold moving through the system. But over here, we have steam. Now, this steam wouldn't itself be a problem right now, but allow me to demonstrate what would happen over here. Let's let that steam build up a little bit. If you notice, the steam is getting trapped. And if I can put enough of this in, it might actually get through fast enough, but eventually it will actually block the movement of items through this area. So the steam is going to start building up in here. We can't really get a sufficient volume of steam to really cause a problem, but the second problem of steam is already apparent. You can see all of the water starting to drain back through the system and causing problems. Now, the water can move through filters as well, but all of the solid blocks are going to trap the water, and that will eventually mean that the water will drain and capture in places where it really shouldn't be. Well, it'll take some time for that water to then get out of the system. Down here, if it ever reaches this point, it can't get out of the system. Thankfully, it can move through this, but you can see there's even still some steam over there, and now that has completely clogged because this does not move. It is lighter than water, so we need a solution for that. And one of the solutions that I would say is always have something that can allow steam to move through. So, for example, we could replace all of these with block everything but gold, for example. Block everything but gold, so on and so forth. That's one way of doing it. The other way, of course, is just pick it up with the sponge upgrade, and that is definitely the faster way of doing it, I will confess. Let's grab that as well, move that along. But another way of setting this up is to make sure that even if steam does get into the system, it's the smaller of the evils, and that anything left over drains out of the system. So to do that, I would just always recommend have a roof, and specifically have a roof that will try to funnel steam. So if we had steam get up here, it would run its course all the way over into this direction, then start to evaporate out over here. So if we pop this in, that should effectively create a steam chimney. All the steam will eventually escape over here, and at that point would happily make its way up, turn into rain somewhere up there, and rain back down. Now, much the same as we've got over there. We do want to prevent it from dribbling back in, since if it went up here, it could rain down there, it could rain down there. So we do want to create a little bit of something, just to ensure that if that does happen, it will eventually all make its way back over here, and then eventually make its way back down into the reservoir. While we're up here, let's go ahead and turn all of this burnt slag, all of this slag into burnt slag. We're up to 2,000 now, which is fantastic because that unlocks the next big bit of research for us, and that is going to be pipes. So unlocks pipes, pumps, and liquid vents. Nevermore will we worry about water. Actually, that's a lie. We still will worry about it. There are a couple of places where that's going to still be an issue for us, but for the most part, we can stop worrying about it, I would say. So what we're going to want over here is a little bit of something along these lines, a little bit of a drain, let's say. And, well, actually, we could move that down a little bit. In fact, I could probably even just build something like that down here. Sure, let's create a little area that will deposit some water into this system. Something along these lines, because, of course, I have to make it look nice. It is the law. Something like that, I think, should be good. We'll get rid of all of that. And I am going to want a conveyor belt just to make sure that anything that drops here gets conveyed into the middle of the area. But with this, let's go ahead and get some liquid vents. I will take 3 liquid vents. I will then want a pipe connecting all 3 of them. Now, at this point, I personally prefer to have the pipes visible, but you can absolutely run them through bedrock. Nothing stopping you from doing that. I just like seeing the pipes moving through my system here and there. We will go through that. That's okay. I can still very clearly see the route the pipe is taking. I don't believe there's actually any effect on the route. Like if it's a long route or a short route, I don't think that particularly has any real impact on the efficiency of the system. It's pretty much a case of whatever goes into the system at the input vent instantly appears at the output vent, from what I can tell. But what you are going to want to make sure is that the pumps are at every place the lowest the water can go. So something like that will capture more or less everything. There is a little spot there where water could accrue, but everywhere else should be good. So we can now hook these up with pipes. There is a different tool for disconnecting pipes, by the way. It took me a little while to notice that, which was a bit of a pain. There we go. And then we'll just bring this straight up, across, up again, and connect that up there. There we go. We should instantly start seeing water moving through and being delivered up to the reservoir, ready for sand to be delivered. Okay, we've made our way down to a frosty area, which causes problems. Let's go ahead and start getting rid of all of this snow again, so that I'm not delivering snow up to the reservoir, though I suppose right now it's all in one place, so it's relatively easy for us to solve, but it's even easier for me to solve right now, so let's try and do our best with that. There we go, and that should be good enough. We can now have the launchers take everything all the way up, and that should take care of it all for us. Eventually there will be snow in the system. I'll just have to deal with that then. Right, let's just clear the sides a little bit, make sure there's nothing really in the way. There we go. There's a little bit of an impediment there as well. Let's let the rocket take care of that. Perfect. Okay, so that's quite a lot of materials that's now going to be making its way up there. Ooh, I see you over there, just waiting for me to come and collect. I think I shall. Let me just cut my way through all of this. You can actually use flames on anything green, by the way. You can absolutely burn up all of the greenery if you particularly want to, and sometimes it actually makes it a lot easier to find where to go next. Or at least I remember discovering lots of little secrets thanks to a trail of burning greenery just slowly spiraling its way through the caves. There we are. We've almost used everything in that pond already. That's kind of wild. There we go. Let's just dig through this. Right, we can also access everything over here, but there's enough sand on the conveyor belt right now, I think, for us to just go up and actually start Dealing with the spores. My least favorite job. All of that steam just slowly clogging up this area and slowly moving through this area too. Let's go ahead and try and make something that will allow that steam to travel. I could happily do this, I suppose. Something like that will allow the steam to move around. It actually builds up there. That's unfortunate. Hadn't considered that one. Very well, I will pop this one back there and I will only allow the steam to move in this direction from now on then. That will definitely cause me issues, so let's just move that back down here. There we go. Make sure we grab all of it so that it doesn't impede any of the burnt slag from connecting with the kinetic slag press properly. And get a little bit more burning going on there. There we go. Seeing this again. That's going to just build up for a little while until it can find a way through, but it should be okay, I think. Yeah, that should be fine. In time, it'll get to where it needs to be. But here we go. More gold is moving into the system. And, ooh, we've got a little bit of burnt. How on earth? Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Noted. Can't afford for that to be there then. Ah, that's a shame. I kind of like that little design there. Alright, well, I'll do it on both sides to make it even. Oh my lord, there was steam in there. Ah, steam gets into everything. How is there still more slag in here? Is it really not getting through? Huh. Tricky. Very tricky. Okay. Well, I guess the other thing I could do is I could have the slag be dumped out on this side. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let me fix this system. Also, I love how that little bit of fire has just been kept going all this time, and as new unburnt slag is delivered, it's burning up. Perfect. If only that was something more sustainable. It's not, but there is a sustainable version of it. We'll get to that in a bit. There we go. That should solve all the problems that I had. Though I will just make this... extend this out a little bit. There we are. Perfect. Right, with that, I should be able to get rid of that little bit of burnt slag that was left in there and just drop that down here. Now, if it gets dropped down here, it should be filtered out from the gold pretty quickly and then fed back through the system. And finally, the steam is getting out of there. That's amazing. Oh, actually, it won't be able to get out here, though, which is a problem. So I'm probably going to need to create a little steam vent on that side as well. Okay, fair enough. Let's get that done then. There we go. So steam can get out there, and if it doesn't, then we should be okay. It'll go out through that side and be fine. Oh, I should not hold in my sneezes, but I could not reach the mute button in time. There we go. Apparently I'm allergic to talking about steam. Right. The system as it stands is processing pretty much everything that we've got, but now that we have pumps, we can actually move on to the next stage. And that is to unlock Refining 3. Unlocks the planter box. Let's research that. Refining 4 will unlock the flux emanator and is, in my mind, the true end because, unfortunately, some of these things are not available. Gunstream, for example, not available in the demo. Filters 2, not available in the demo. Now, the tricky thing with spores, and this is the first time you really hit something tricky. If we just grab a little bit of spore here, so yoink, and drop it in there, notice how it does not sink. It becomes wet spore, but it does not sink. And that is an issue for us. Let's grab the last little bits of it. There we go. Drop that in there. And that will then get added on top of the water. So we need to create a system that can wet the spores and can still transport them because it isn't just wetting the spores. We need to wet the spores and then introduce them to a planter box. If we have a look through here, the planter box, drop wet spores on a planter box to start growing flowers that you can destroy to get gold and petals. Problem again, they are much like slag. If I grab the slag here, it's just going to sit on the top of the water and it causes issues. We'll introduce that over there, though I don't have anywhere for the wet spores to go just yet. That's fine. They will get filtered through, much like the snow is currently getting filtered through. But this is going to be a problem for us. So I need a way of ensuring that I'm only dealing with wet spores. The way to do that, you might imagine, is to create a puddle of water. We're going to be using the pipes for this to ensure that the water is never particularly deep, and that way the spores can still move along. So what I'm going to suggest we do, and this is after significant amounts of testing on my part to find a system that works. I've tried dropping the water from above, but the problem is the spores will simply rise, they will clog. The other problem that we have is that pumps themselves are not solid objects. Things can move through them. I will demonstrate this by grabbing these spores and dropping them on this conveyor belt. Notice how they're just passing straight through. Now, on one hand, that does allow us to do some interesting things and it will help us, but that in it of itself was causing me an awful lot of problems before as well. The spore washer design that I've come up with is to have a combination of belt and jumpers, launches. Now, the way I ended up setting this up was along these lines. Initially, I didn't use a conveyor belt. I just had a solid block, but that was until I learned that the spores could simply sit behind the vent and thus clog the vent. So instead, we will have a system of just hopping the spores along to the end of this area, something like that. We will introduce the spores on one side, just have them move along, hopefully, and then be spat back out the other side and drop down into exactly the same system, because we're going to really want to make sure that these have been fully processed. So we'll do the same again and have a wall down here, something like that. We will have the liquid vents, 1, 2, and 3. Now you could have more, but I find that having them thrown around like this with the vent here, first and foremost, there's no water pressure. So the water level will never rise above these vents. It will only ever be this one tile. So at that point, these will cast them up. If something should manage to get above the water vent, it will be thrown away. But generally speaking, the things that are behind the water vent, hopefully the belt will grab and eventually shimmy that along. I have yet to find this system fail, but that doesn't mean that it is a perfect system. And in fact, if you've come up with a better way of doing this, please, I am all ears. Do share in the comments down below. But for now, this should work for us. Now, to set this up properly, I need to delete more or less all of this. This is all going to go back into the system. Oh, actually, thinking about that, that needs to be only spores, not wet spores. Almost made a mistake there. There we go. And then this can simply move along. So we're going to grab this whole setup and move it. Well, my hope was I was going to be able to copy it over, but apparently not. So to err on the side of caution, I'm simply going to delete everything down here. Like so. Just allow that to all filter through. And then we will copy this. And there we go. All of this should get pushed through. Eventually this is going to make its way back through the system. It's going to be a little bit of time before it does, but it will eventually manage it. Over here, though, we are going to very, very urgently need to move this along. Something like there, I'm going to say. And have this be a wet spore collection area. So once again, we want a little bit of something just to isolate that. But this can all be wet spores at that point. And the snow can be just deposited at the far side. We are going to have snow in here, that's fine. Allow wet spores in here. That'll do for now. We're going to have a lot of these, but we will come back to that shortly. First, I want to get some of the rest of this area set up. So let's just get all of this out. There we go. Allow it to all filter through. Anything that isn't captured by any of these areas just carries on filtering along. Ooh. They should just drop straight through. Yeah, they will. I do need to bring along the water. Actually, what I could do is just strip that out. There we go. That's nice and easy. Right, let's get the pipe set up. Now, I'm going to need way more water for this, but this will have to be enough for now. And that can all come straight down there, along, and then hook up. And then each one just needs to connect up to the others on its row. And this should be a sufficient spore washer. There we are, starting to see some regular wet spores making it through. Perfect. Eventually all of this will be in the same place. That is going to throw up water. Yes, it is. I'm not sure if I just introduced some snow up there. Let's hope I didn't, because if I did, that's going to cause me issues. Let's try and grab some. That's a wet spore, that's fine. Let me just grab some snow from there and see if any made it through. It doesn't look like it. We're fine. But that was very much a mistake on my part. And with that, there we go. Everything should get filtered through. Okay, marvelous. We are still seeing quite a lot of just regular spores making its way, and that's likely because we do not have the water for this. What I will say then is I could have a separate system of water being pumped out of here, like keep it at a certain level, rather than have that piped into this system. Might be a better way of doing it, actually. So I'm going to remove that pipe. Instead, we're going to bring this along. So we'll have multiple routes that the pipes take. Let's say something around here. We'll set up 3 pumps. So as long as the water is delivered to the reservoir, then it will effectively be in here. This is above the lowest level that any steam water will rise to. So it'll only work if I am pumping in fresh water from elsewhere. But that's fine by me. And now we're seeing plenty of spores being generated again. Okay. It looks like it's working for now. We will have to revisit and make sure that it is. But for the time being, I'm happy with what we've got. Right, let's head on back down. We're probably going to tap into this little water over here as well. We now need to tap into pretty much every water source that we find. Because this is now going to be a very thirsty system. That was a miss. That was a double miss. Very bad. We'll wait for the rocket launcher to reset again. There we go. Pop. And there's a tiny amount of blast stone there. And so, of course, I need to get rid of it. All right. But for the time being, though, we can definitely set up a couple of pumps. Let's go ahead and do that. And get these being delivered across to the rest of the water by linking this up to the main reservoir. That'll make sure that the water gets where it needs to be. And here we go. We have finished carving out this area, and we've been introduced to a new resource, and that is red soil. You can interact with it by mining or with explosives. Let's just go ahead and mine a little bit so I can showcase this to you. As you can see, it takes a lot, even with the digging tool, to break through that. And that will give us red sand. Now, this interacts with amethyst. Amethyst are the petals that we are going to receive when we destroy plants with the planter pots. It's going to be a very important part of our whole system, actually. It's one of the most important parts, is that it's going to lead to an inexhaustible supply. Well, I say inexhaustible. It'll last for as long as we've got red sand supply of fluxite. But for now, it's a little bit away from it. What is even more important in here, though, is the amount of water that we've just uncovered. So we're going to set up a couple of things. I'm not really in a great rush to mine out the red sand, especially because it takes so much effort to mine. But we do need to clear a little bit just so that we can get down to the very lowest parts of this area and set up pumps. So let's just go ahead and do that manually, because it's not a task that we really need to automate, but we may as well start moving this out. But we are eventually going to want an enormous quantity of red sand to be delivered up to the factory. And again, that's going to be our end game material, really. There we go. That should do. For now, though, the real treasure here is the available water. So let's set up a couple of pumps just kind of cover all of the little nooks and crannies that water might accumulate in, and then hook all of these up to the pipe network, and we should be golden. There we go, and there as well. That'll hook up and straight up and across. There we are. All is done, and we shouldn't have to worry about water for at least a little while. Now, we've got a couple of different exploratory shafts dug through, and I think we're probably going to go for one of the ones over here, since there's quite a lot over here that we're going to be able to start digging into relatively easily. And this also is a fairly deep shaft compared to that one, so I think this is the one that we're going to start excavating out. Of course, I'm going to use rockets for as long as I can. There we go. That clears up quite a lot. I believe this actually goes down, so I'm not going to have to worry about that too much. Instead, we're going to start digging up. Let me go ahead and start mining out the perimeter of this mine so that we can start putting in the conveyor belts in a more efficient configuration. I am strongly considering moving across and upgrading some of the rockets so that we've got a faster rocket reload. That would be a huge help for us overall. There we go. Let's just dig through this. We're almost up to the 500 I think we would need for that. So let's follow the fluxite tail there. There we go. That should do. Let's head in here. Rocket reload system or extended magazine. Oh, we'll go with the reload system. Reload first, then magazine second, I think would be the best way of doing this. This should keep us going for quite some time. We're already at 3,000, so I'm not too worried about us being able to gather enough money to do the next component of research. There are quite a few things actually in the research tree that I think some people are going to be interested in. Drones in particular is very, very nice. Filters we can't go to. Refining, we can probably take a little bit of a deviation, I think, for that. The vacuum to move sand around is quite cool, but I think definitely drones are where more people are going to be interested. So we might save up the $3 grand needed to unlock the digger and the hauler drones. Now, the digger drone, kind of underwhelming in my opinion, but the hauler drone is actually very, very good. And the further research that you can do to upgrade the hauler drone is particularly awesome. There we go. We've got this water over here is an extra steam reservoir. Once you've worked through all of the steam there, you can come down here and get a little bit of extra moving back up. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're already getting to a point where we've kind of overfilled the conveyor belts that we've got. But I guess I will send this up into the next area. I really do love the way that all of this works. This definitely makes me think of the times where I've set up alchemical laboratories in Noita. Just an area of the map that I have decided this is my base, and I'm going to work through all of the various combinations of materials. I've never made a truly impressive one. It's been enough to entertain me for a couple of days at the very least, but I know that some people have gone really full bore with that kind of thing and have set up what probably much more deserving of the title alchemical lab. Whereas me, I'm just happy with my little Athanor and a face full of toxic fumes. But nevertheless, this does scratch that same itch. All these different spots in the game where we've got little distilling setups made out of bedrock, and it's something I would very much like to see expanded on in the full game. I don't know what the plans are with that, how much of this game is going to be a puzzle game for all intents and purposes, because that's effectively what this is. If you need more water, uncover the puzzle that unlocks steam. But I would very much like to see that expanded upon. Okay, we've started a little fire now, so that should take care of all of this greenery. Let's help it along, though. That way I can very quickly find out exactly how far that goes. For the time being, though, let's get another little launcher cluster there just to move things along. I'll move this bit manually. Unfortunately, I had to use launchers here because there is a spill. Sorry, there's a little bit of bedrock right there, so I can't put conveyors there. I suppose, well, actually, one thing I could do is this instead. Okay, and whilst excavating over here, I guess it's time for us to go and say hello to what is effectively the end of the demo, if you have the willpower to stop at this point, which I absolutely do not, but congratulate you if you do. Let's get rid of that ice. It amuses me that ice literally cannot be gotten rid of by gunfire or shovels. It has to be a flamethrower. That's not how ice works. But then again, there are many things in this game that don't work the way that you might expect them to. But let's grab this little last bit of fluxite over on this side. And I'll let that steam out. But this right here is the second artifact. And the main goal of the demo as it stands. But of course, our main goal is to expand the factory. The factory must grow. We must unlock every single thing that the factory can do. Let's grab those. Can I grab all of it? Yes, I can. Marvelous. Right. Okay. So, rockets. Get rid of this crackstone. There we are. And also, let's grab whatever steam there was with it. There we go. Use the flamethrower. There's no puzzle over on this side. We don't need to struggle with it. Most of this was greenery, so it just happily has extracted itself thanks to the introduction of a flamethrower. And there we go. Demo complete. Congratulations. You've reached the end of the demo. Thank you for playing. You can continue to exploring and building in the world, but there won't be any more story content or artifacts to find in this version. That is perfectly okay. At this point, if you've been playing along with me and haven't already, you should 1000% go and add this to your wish list on Steam. Let's make sure that all of that sand is collected as well, and we will unleash the wrath of the rockets again in a moment. But first, let's go to upgrades and slip on over to... actually, let's go for rapid fire, the second component. There we go. Look how fast that is now. Now, this isn't even the gun's final form. I mean, obviously, you've already seen that it can have one more level of rapid fire, but it gets even more crazy when you go for triple burst. Let me just remove all of this with the rockets, though. The rockets, as far as I am aware, can go all the way up to having 5 rockets in a magazine. And can reload at a relatively swift pace, but it's when you start adding the napalm rockets that they really start to kick off. There we go. Just the last little bit from down here. And on the topic of napalm rockets, we might even be able to go and get enough fluxite to unlock that. So I might go and check that out in a moment. There we go. Right. Whilst all of that sand is making its way on up, and we'll just clean up that part. There we go. I'm going to go and check out where all of that greenery managed to retreat to. I do believe it has unlocked some more fluxite for us, so let's go and pay it a visit, shall we? Yes, indeed we should. There we go. Oh, it's unlocked quite a lot of fluxite down here. Right, I believe there's some more red sand down there as well, which we will definitely need to tap into in a little bit. But let's continue to expand this out. And you know what? At this point, I think we've likely got enough that I could save up for the triple rocket and for the triple burst on the gun, and also get the reload. So give me just a few moments. Okay, we've made it to a point where honestly, I think we need to start placing down some lights. So let me. We've already got that unlocked. That's fantastic. Let's go ahead and get drones unlocked as well. We will definitely showcase those, though not just yet. But time for me to place down a couple of lights down here, because this place is getting very, very dark. And thankfully, I can place lights quite far away. This will also allow us to see some more of the interesting designs going on over here. But that's a bunch of red sand over there. If we have a look at that. Yeah, red soil. Let's go ahead and upgrade our gun, and then we can properly see how this can work for us. So we've now got triple burst and the maximum fire rate for the gun. And that is now capable of harvesting enormous amounts of area. At this point, I would say that outside of some fairly edge cases, the gun is the best means of excavating moving forward. Still not very good at gathering red sand, though, because red sand really wants explosives more than anything else, so you want to go for the rockets for that one. There we go, which have no trouble at all excavating the red sand, but still, the gun is a reasonable backup. Okay, color me surprised. The clog is not the water over here. Well, it sort of is, I guess, but I imagine it's, if I'm to guess at anything, it's that we have got so much non-processed stuff moving back here. It's kind of preventing any sand from getting on the conveyor. That makes sense. All right, well, let's have a quick look over here. We've got a crazy block going on here. Ah, I see. My bad. Let's fix that problem, shall we? Ah, there we go. Oops. Let's get that moving through here. That way all of this can clear out and things can start moving again properly. While all that's happening, let's go and get through some of the steam in our reservoir back here. Allow that to filter back up. I may as well take care of that while I'm going through. There we go. That will make its way up. But for the most part, let's just get down here and take care of all of this. Now, there is easily enough water for you to complete the demo. That is to say, to get you to the point where you've experienced a little bit of everything and you've gotten all of the artifacts. But you will eventually start to feel the hurt of water. Probably before... Yeah, I would say probably before you run out of red sand, you will run out of water. If you get to that point. So I will demonstrate how to duplicate water, though I very much consider this a bug, and as such, it will almost certainly be fixed in the future at some point. So I wouldn't necessarily build your plans for your factory around being able to duplicate water, but we'll get to that in a little bit. In the meanwhile, we can start considering the setup of even more problems for us in the form of the plants. So the way the plants work, you place a wet spore on a planter box. The planter box will allow gold and petals to move through. The plants that grow out of this will grow quite tall, but as you destroy them, you can burn them, you can shoot them with a gun. They will shed petals and gold. They will fall through this. So you want the lowest layer of your garden to just be planter boxes. Now, in reality, there is a way to automate this. We're not going to get there, but understand that part of the design that I'm going to create is with that in mind. So I don't worry too much if it isn't immediately obvious why I am leaving a certain gap. It's just it is going to be used later on. Let's do something like that, and then down here we will have a little area back there. I'm going to set up a filter. Well, actually, no. For now, I'm going to set up a conveyor belt. But eventually, that is going to be something else. It's not as useful for this system to have this, but we want wet spores to be dropped by the filter. It isn't as functional in this particular setup as it was to have the filter for the burnt slag to just slow it down, but it will serve a little bit of a function for us. Down here, though, we are definitely going to want to allow through gold to travel in that direction, or rather allow through gold to drop down from here, but we are going to be collecting the amethyst, so we'll have that move along to the side, and as usual, we'll have a little bit of a collection point up top, something along these lines, and there we go. Right, so once again, copy, grab, and let's move it closer at the very least. What I would like is for it to take this spot. You know what? Sure. Let's make that happen. I am going to have to remove these and replace that with this, like so. And I'm going to have to pull some of this through. That's fine, though. Not too much of a problem for me. I'll add that in there and just filter this up. There we go. And everything is as it should be. Okay, I think I have gathered out pretty much all of the non-wet spore particles in here. I could have missed a few, but it's time to show how the plants actually work. There's moss, there's stuff, and there's petals. We are going to flamethrower them. The normal way to deal with anything that's growing in your garden that you don't want to be growing there. However, you may note that this is going to be a bit of a losing battle because as fast as we can burn it, it's going to grow more, which is part of the problem. Thankfully, though, since it is flammable, it will work its way up through the system. And so it'll all start falling down, and then more spores will get through, and then will get filtered into it. Gold is running down, the petals are being collected and will be cast over into this section. Now, at this point, I could introduce red sand or red soil, and it would work. Don't worry too much about that over there. That's fine. Now that we've built this, it will eventually get filtered out just as soon as there's room to filter it out. But this flame will, for the most part, handle itself for a little while, but you may notice that some things are starting to stockpile up there. That is not what we want to see. So, we are going to need to redesign the system in a couple of different ways. There are a few, again, I've mentioned a few times that this is the end boss of the game. And so I'm going to iterate through some of the solutions that I've found and allow the problems to rear their ugly heads first before I show how I came to fix them. Right, over here we're going to need to get some more of you being processed, which is in itself a little bit of a problem because it's going to mean that we're going to get a load more spores down here, but that is just a problem that we're going to have to live through, I'm afraid. Right, we need some more water. We need quite a lot more water, actually, so let's go ahead and find ourselves some more water deep down in the mines. It shouldn't take us too long. There's a decent amount of it. In fact, there's an awful lot of it over on that side. Why have I come this way? Oh, well. You know what? There's loads of water down here, too. So, first we will start with the ice. So, let's get all of that melted through. And it will accumulate little pockets of steam here and there. We'll move those around eventually. But for now, we just want all of this glorious water to be available to us. Let's get all of that as well. I think that's just steam over there. Yes, it is. Now, some of this is frostbed and some of it is ice. The more tealy color is frostbed, whereas the more cyan is ice. There we go. But as long as you just take your time to work through it all, it should be fine. Now, this is definitely the point where I introduce the most steam into the system usually, and then have to faff around trying to fix it all and all of the problems that steam will add. There we go. Let's just get a little bit of this. Make sure it is easy enough to collect from everywhere that it's going to accumulate. There we go. And we're going to want these all over the place, really. Even a little bit there, because it will accumulate there. And then we'll just run these all the way along that side. And that should be good enough to bring all of this water back into the system. So we'll just run this all the way along to here and up through there. We will be adding more water in a moment. There's a little bit down there as well. I could just allow you to filter through. Oh, right. It's being delivered. Rather, it is a problem that is cropping up as a consequence of the steam. We will have to work on that. One of the big reasons why you really do want to work on it, by the way, and not just allow this problem to persist, is that the way the game handles single particle, the single particles in the simulation is not the best, and can lead to very much headaches later on. Dealing with it early is very much in your best interests. Let's move that around. There we go. And that as well. That should now move up there nice and easily. Did I research the vacuum? I did not. Let's do it. This will give me the cryoblaster, which will allow me to freeze water if I particularly want to, and solidify lava. We'll get to that. That is not something that we're going to be working on just yet. But I am going to want the cryoblaster, the vacuum. We're not going to use this very often. In fact, that's probably the only time I ever do use it, if I'm perfectly honest. It's not a tool that I find myself needing to use much of. But we are starting to see water piling up. We do need more, though. So let's continue on our hunt. I could remove the water from there, but honestly, I think that's a bit of a mistake, since that will make the puzzle a lot harder to deal with. As for the steam, how is the steam getting up there and getting back down into the system? Let me go and fix that before I start moving all of that steam, because you can absolutely move that steam with the vacuum. It's just the steam turns to jelly. Don't ask. I didn't. Right. On the topic of vacuuming steam. There you go. Jelly steam. Again, don't ask. It's just what it does. There's probably some sort of sanity check to prevent the game creating some sort of infinite loop of some sort. Nevertheless, it is kind of hilarious, but does make moving steam less than ideal with the vacuum. I find it easier to use the grabber, personally. That being said, you know, we can definitely move it out over here where it shouldn't cause any big issues anymore. But the alternative is to just use your grabber like this. Does require a little bit of shimmying around to make sure you've caught all of the particles and filled in all the spaces on the grabber tool. But in my opinion, it is way less of a potch. There we are. Also, I dropped down some lights so that we could actually see underneath the conveyor belts, because it was getting a little bit gloomy in here. But it is time for us to start hitting the next section of the next biome. And that is by digging our way through here. We are going to want to move this along the top, I think. Something along these lines should work well for us. Pop that in there. And I'll just shimmy this up like this. Alternatively, this is where we can move across to the drones. The hauler. You select a single, you click and drag rather, like so. And you launch a drone. You've got a limited amount. So as you can see, if once you drag it across like that, it'll usually move them away. But this is a much easier way than you doing this manually. They'll just grab an entire chest full. Well, easier is the wrong word. It will allow you to do this for a much larger area, and then you can go and do something more important. So, with that in mind, let's find out where the bottom of this area is, where the bedrock is. There we go, just down there. Just clear that out. Now, we don't necessarily want all of this water to be up there, but I do want to get rid of the dirt that's down here. How do we want to do this? I guess I could, for the time being, just run a conveyor all along the water surface and then build up a little bit of something over here, a little block like so, and then a 2 pattern of launchers. Almost got me, game, but I'm on to you. There we are. Now, if we hook this up to the piping, it should empty out the water down here fast enough that we will be able to get all of those conveyors in place. Can I not build those at all? Oh, that's very frustrating. Oh, well. In that case, then, let's create the pumps. I want to move this water nice and fast. So 3 on each side. And the pipes. Now, of course, this isn't going to move all of the water, but it'll move enough of it. And we should just be able to hook that up like so. There we go. We'll immediately start seeing that water level drop, and the conveyors get replaced. Now, as I've not yet found a way to tell the drones to stop droning. So that part we're just going to have to live with. Now, this is where they live now. But we can just keep moving them along. Now, further research into drones, we can upgrade drones. Over here, now that we've unlocked it, we get rapid deployment for the digger. The digger, not the best in my opinion. I will showcase it once enough of this... Actually, enough of it has been built, I think. So, the way the digger works... Get the digger drone. A drone that digs autonomously. It now digs. Until it hits bedrock, and then it dies. So, in the right situation, it can do a lot of digging for you. As long as it can do a lot of rebounding. But I don't find it particularly useful. Now, further research will allow it to collide with bedrock more times before it destroys itself. But again, I think by the time you're getting up to drones, you've got such good digging tech anyway that it is completely unnecessary. I may as well just use rockets or indeed the crazy efficient gun at this point to do all of the digging for me. The digger drone, not a fan, but I do very much like the hauler drones for certain little areas. Okay, there we go. That's all of the sand removed, and unfortunately one of my least favorite areas revealed. I will show why in just a moment. First, I'm going to grab this little bit of fluxite over here, which I can reach because it'll make me feel ever so slightly better about all the fluxite that I'm about not to be able to reach. It is one of the only places in the game that I have discovered where, as far as I can tell, and I have tried so hard, there are bits of fluxite that you simply cannot get to. Now, it may be possible. It just occurred to me, like literally just occurred to me, despite the amount of times that I've been trying. Perhaps this place is where you're meant to use the upgraded drones. The upgraded digger drones that can bounce multiple times off bedrock. Oh my lord. Did I just discover the secret key? Either way, I'm not going to have the upgraded drones for a little while, but still, that might be how we get all of this. My goodness. If that is the way of doing it. All is forgiven, digger drones. You are the best tool in this game, bar none. As you can see, it is getting increasingly hard to actually clip the right tiles and extract that precious, precious fluxite. And it is very, very clearly intentionally designed this way. I don't know why I'm being punished. I only know that I am being punished, and I wish I weren't. You can definitely get almost all the way back to the rear of the cavern. In fact, you can get to the rear of the cavern. It's just there are going to be bits of fluxite that you can't quite get your rockets to. Now, you can manipulate the fact that the rocket seems to only gain physics after it's traveled a little bit away from the nozzle, or rather the mouth of the launcher. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff back there that I wish I could get to easily, but I cannot. I can, however, add in some lighting to make it a bit easier to see. But I'm going to go from this place quickly so that it doesn't melt my brain too much more than it already has over the many, many long hours that I have tried to access these delicious riches hidden right at the back here. Yeah, we'll come back with drones. Eventually. Maybe. I don't know. My sanity might not allow it. We'll see how I feel in a few hours. Right, there we are. I'm going to start that burning through because it's going to take a little while for that to get where it's going. But now, with all of that done, it's time for us to head back up to the factory because we definitely have the money. Actually, we've got a lot of upgrade possibilities. Well, first and foremost then, standard magazines, get all of those. And also incendiary warheads. And also all of the quick digs. Now, incendiary warheads are the key to getting infinite water. I won't do it down here because the steam will just accumulate in a place that I don't want it to. But I have not really played around with the infinite dig. Weird, I know. Or rather the expanded dig. But we will go and check that out. But first, we want to do a little bit more building. Oh my lord, it's already clogged all the way down here. Okay, that mess is a little bit more taken care of now. Though we've still got an enormous amount of wet spores that we need to enter into the system. Now, it's going to take a very long time for those spores to be processed fully, but they're on their way. However, the next part of the puzzle that we have now the ability to unlock is the flux emanator. Let's go ahead and unlock that and check it out. This is the flux emanator. We can have exactly one. Convert void bloom into fluxite. Now, what exactly is void bloom? The game doesn't do a very good job of explaining this. But if we have a look at that, it actually doesn't show anything up there. No. So, amethylis interacts with red sand. Red sand, we have already seen a little bit of, though I've not been bringing it up. It's time for us to start entering that into the system. Now, we don't really need Amethyst by itself, but we do actually want it to be delivered. So we will create a little bit of a system that will filter it through and then move it around in here. Now, over here, we're going to want the red sand to start being collected. So I'm going to want to mirror this design there, and then a path down. Something along those lines should work. And everything on this side should just be red. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll work. There we go. And so we'll have 4 for red sand. Right here. Oop, I should use control for that. There we go. Now in the middle, we're going to want Void Bloom. Only allow Void Bloom past this point. Doesn't really matter which way the conveyor is going. It's just going to accumulate. So we'll grab all of this. Oh, really? Those petals can actually travel quite far, can't they? Want the conveyor over on this side. I had not really anticipated that the petals were able to fly quite as aggressively, so maybe I'll allow this launcher to take it one little bit higher. That way they should all just stack right there. And then on this side, exactly the same thing. All the way up. Now, as you've already probably guessed from the fact that I've set it up this way, Void Bloom is made by combining the petals with red sand. I could just drain all of this, actually, rather than doing anything fancy like that. That'll work quite nicely. There we go. This will get pushed back out into the system. Now, at the very, very bottom is this. We can only have one of these, but it will take the Void Bloom that we feed it and will produce Fluxite. And this is effectively the end technology for the game. Once we've reached that point, there is nothing more that we can realistically do research-wise. We can continue working on making the factory more efficient, and that's definitely something that we should be doing. But for the most part, as soon as this red sand gets up there, we'll help it along, though, by just dropping this. Oop, inopportune moment for an autosave, but I'll take it. Grab that red sand, just pop that up there. This is one of the last things that you functionally need. Red sand, it is quite light though, so it's not going to push its way up against other things, unfortunately. We could help that out a little bit by expanding the amount of reach this has, but basically the system needs to filter through for this to work. But as soon as we see this get across here, we should start seeing the let me just double check the name of it. The flux emanator. I knew it wasn't flux capacitor. I was pretty certain of that. And yet that was the only word that my brain wanted to reach for. Scumbag brain. Right. Now over here, we're going to continue having problems with the petals managing to push their way up through there. That is something that we're going to want to change. And the way realistically to do that is to have a launcher that will just take anything that manages to push its way all the way along to the side and throw it up top here. It's a very messy way of doing this, but it's a very quick way of doing it as well. So we're going to do that. We'll set up a little launcher right there. We'll add in a wall about there, like so. And at this point, if anything manages to get over to this stage, you can just launch it out. That's the easiest, dirtiest way of getting this to work that I've found. Not necessarily the way you want to do it, certainly, but for the sake of expediency, we'll do it this way for now. Right, down here, I'm going to want, once again, to make sure that everything is pushed onto a single tile, just to make sure that it goes through the system properly. But that should fix things up. And as you can see, there we are. The red sand isn't making it all the way down, which is a little bit of a problem there. If I grab the void bloom, pick that up. Usually this should... no, it does not sink. Never mind. Never mind then. I was under the impression it would. It's the red sand that can sink. Right, gotcha. It's my bad then. Well, what we'll do here in that case then is have the void bloom push that way. Allow that through. And select that as well. There we go. At this stage, void bloom should be able to push through. No, not really. We are going to want to make this sink into a single spot then, I would say. Something like a trickle feeder for these two components. So that never, not much is ever introduced into the space at once. Something like that. And then we'll have the void bloom. There we go. That should ensure that enough red sand always gets through. My bad though. I completely flubbed that one and missed that void bloom was the heavier material. Sorry, the lighter material when it came to Amethyst. I believe it is heavier than red sand though. Though clearly don't quote me on that one at this point. There we go. And there we are. It is now starting to convert the void bloom into fluxite. So with that there, this should allow for a continuous production of void bloom. Though we do need a lot of sand to make that work. Right, that should be enough red sand for us for a little while. I'm going to have to fix that as well. Let's make sure that that can actually hurl things back eventually. And we'll just block the rest of that off just so that it doesn't get anywhere it shouldn't be. There we go, that'll do fine. Right, there we are. Now, it's going to take a while for all of this red sand to get up to where it needs to go, but that's okay for the time being, I should imagine. The main thing that we're going to need to work on at this point, if we have a look at our research, is we can't go for drawings 2. That's a shame. We can unlock the cryoblaster to freeze water and solidify lava. And eventually we can unlock the grappling hook. In fact, we can unlock that right now. That's it. All research is complete. All that remains now is to gather enough fluxite to do all of the upgrades as well. But where is this lava that the game has alluded to? We will probably come across that in a little bit. But for now, I'm actually going to make the problem of getting all of our materials into the right places even worse by creating more sand. But I will bring you back in a couple of minutes when I've finished excavating out this part of the mine as well. Also, there is some more fluxite over at the top here that I'll be able to extract, which might push us over the 1,000 I need to get my jetpack upgraded, because frankly, oh, this is so slow. Right, let's flip over to the rocket launcher, because why not? There we go. Perfect. Was that everything? Evidently not, because I can definitely see some shadows still. There we go. It was enough. That's definitely been a nice big upgrade for us. So let's go ahead and increase the thrust amplifier. Now we are moving at maximum speed with the jetpack. It is a massive luxury to invest in that early on, but at this point I think we deserve it. Now, to get down in this direction, which hopefully will reveal more water, let's go ahead and launch all of these rockets. Yeah, a little bit of water down there. And a load of steam being created by the napalm of the rocket launcher. There we go. And again, this is absolutely how you generate more water. The napalm seems to create quite a lot more steam. And as a consequence... let's pop that there. We might be able to get this to move out in this direction and up from there. That will give us a bit of a better path for that steam to take. Yeah, from there it should be able to easily reach the vent there. It's going to be a lot easier for me to clean that up every now and then. Not that we intend to send too much steam up here, but that should get to where it's going now. There we go. Right. Let's go ahead and gather this little bit of steam as well, because I'm finicky about such things. There we are. I know it's panicky. I'm not panicky about mispronouncing finicky. Nevertheless, let's get this water hooked into the system. It looks like there's quite a lot of it. Oh, glory be. And there we are. Right, so we have come to the last biome. Well, effectively. I think there is one or two more biomes or biome equivalents around. But for now, this is the last important one for us. Oh, wow. Okay, that's lit up. Let's go ahead and place down some lights over there just so I can always see it. There we go. That'll work quite nicely. I'm not going to need those lights over here, but I am going to be a little bit lazy here, and I'm going to set up my haulers to carry this over there for me. There we go. Right, so the Cryoblaster tool. Used... Oh, let me bring that back up. Used to create snow, freeze water, and solidify lava. This down here is lava. Interacts with frost, or indeed the Cryoblaster, if that's the method you're going to go with. There we go. And if we just grab that and just drop it down, it'll continue to make it into it. You can, by the way, pick up the flames. And for as long as you're holding on to them, they seem to persist. A bit of an interesting one there. Let me just grab all of that and pop it up there. Will that start a fire? No, it will not. However, we are indeed going to start the fire ourselves. So let's go ahead and introduce the flames. This should take care of all of the vegetation in here. There you go. And then down here as well. One. There we are. Perfect. Right. That's going to eat away at everything. Oh, okay. There had to be one that I didn't manage to get. Fine. Rockets for you. But if we have a look at this, this is now scoria. Interact with digging or explosive. By the way, we are in fact immune to lava. Now, it's going to take ages to get through this with the digging tool, even with all of its upgrades. We can get through it with the gun. Again, it's going to take ages. By far and away, the fastest way is to use your rocket launcher. Now, that has converted this into cinder, which interacts with fire. Now, why is lava not interacting with it? Don't ask me silly questions. But if we go ahead and set this on fire with our flamethrower, it converts back into lava. Notice one of the interesting effects of lava over here is that it is causing a particle of fire to rise. And this is really where some of the later game automation comes in. We are going to go through and we're going to convert all of this surface into scoria. And we're going to be using this to automate our flame requiring processes in the factory. Now, this is almost certainly enough for us for now. But I would like to make sure that we're not going to have to come down here again for a little while. So let's go ahead and have all of this gathered in one spot. Just down here, I think. Should be fine. Now, you might be wondering why I'm doing it this way. You'll very quickly get the answer to that question. There we go. All right. If I just go ahead and grab a couple of handfuls, we are going to want this in actual handfuls, by the way. So a full grabber's worth. All right, now that I have set this up, it is time for us to make a very, very long journey. The reason why I'm having all of this get pulled into one spot is so I can use the hauler to grab it from this one spot, like so. And now I'm just going to carry this endpoint all the way up to the factory. So that this one hauler is going to have an incredibly long journey, but I mean, you know, it will Still definitely be faster than me waiting or creating just a automated process just for this. We do not want to automate the processing of Cinder. That would be very, very bad. As a rogue lava particle can cause enormous damage to your factory. Namely, it can get into your water supply, and a single particle you just can't seem to freeze. I don't know why. Used to be that a single particle of the plants would cause massive problems, but that has largely been fixed. So I hope that that is also coming in a future fix. But for now, having lava just available is not a good idea. You want to use very, very exacting amounts of Cinder to get very specific jobs done. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be very tightly controlling its presence in the factory beyond that. So let's go on up. We should be able to make use of this little spot. Oh, well, actually, no, let's not use that spot. I guess using a spot over here would do, but I'm going to place it over here instead. So there we go. Now, I'm going to want this to be sealed off. Like so. It's going to take our bot a little while to get all of that over here, but that's fine. And while all of that's doing its thing, I may as well melt some of this snow. Now then, what I would very much like over here is to get all of this slag burnt. And that will be... Well, actually, we could start over on this side instead. And that might be a better place to start. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a filter that will only allow Cinder through. I might need this a bit closer. So that's what I'm going to do for now. Place that there. Then I'm going to... I did like this pattern. But, oh well. We're going to have to go, I'm afraid. There we are. That will move it across. There we go. All right, let me move some of the petals out of this. All right, there we go. Just move all of that down for now. So it's out of the way. And we can start work on the next part of this process. Like that as well. Right, so if we are to drop that in there, now we have to be fairly careful with it. We want it to fill each and every tile before we do the next stage. There we go. And so using a filter, it will just move along the conveyor belt. And then just shimmy on down into that position. And at this point, I think it should be ready. Now I'll allow the hauler to bring up more cinder. Yep, there we go. Put that down there. Now it's time for us to convert this back into lava. Pretty simple once you've got it going. And that lava, let's make sure we get every single little bit, is going to periodically cause a little flecks of flame to rise up. And that, in turn, will kickstart the burning process over again for the plants. So that is now, for all intents and purposes, completely automated. Now, we're effectively going to want exactly the same system over here. Only with this one, we've got two conveyor belts effectively impacting it. So this conveyor belt first. Bring it down to about here. And then we'll want a second area down here. And I realistically only want it to be one high. So something like that will work. And we're going to want this set up for cinder once again. Only allow cinder through. Let me just make sure that that is correctly set. There we go. And then we will likely have a second one. And at that point, I don't think we're going to need more than that. I would be shocked if any slag managed to get through that much lava without being burnt. But still, there is a possibility, and that's why we've got a massive reservoir for it. Okay. At this stage, there's no more flames in here, so I think it is possible that we can safely introduce the cinder. I know that this much cinder is not going to be too much. Let's drop some there. That should already start filtering through. Because we've got so much room for lava over here, we should... I'm not even sure we're going to finish the first row. We'll see. It might be possible. But keeping this only one tile up means that the potential flames will definitely interact with the slag as it's moving across. Actually, we might have just enough. Luck, not judgment. Yeah, just enough. Okay, that will start moving down below. At this stage then, I very much want to only set this cinder into lava. Just go through that, make sure every single tile is caught. What I don't want is to accidentally set the other cinder just below it on fire. That would not work out well for us, but there we are. As you can see now, we are instantly burning the slag as it gets through. Honestly, this is probably overkill. We likely have enough there that I do not need to worry about the rest of it. And given that, this could comfortably sit at the bottom down here and already process the slag as it's coming through. And then this could be the ejector onto the kinetic slag press. There are so many ways that you can improve your setup in this. So many ways. And this is a large part of why I've spent so many hours playing the game. It almost always feels like there's more that you can work on. As far as research goes, there is nothing now for us to research, so we are simply accruing gold for the simple joy of having a massive mountain of gold. As for the snow, don't need that. That exists here only to be gotten rid of. And maybe I could even set up a little cinder, a little magma area down here so that the snow is always converted into steam. That being said, I do worry that it would also make water, and that might interact very interestingly with the lava. I don't know how it would interact, and so I'm a little bit reluctant to find out. Right, there we go. That is starting to block up, though, which is a bit of a pain. I think we could probably make a better system there. Part of it is just the amount of... is a fairly small system we've got going on here. Another way of setting it up would be to have the void bloom going through a filter. And that might well be worth our time. Yeah, because this is easily one of the biggest holdups for us right now. Void bloom will travel through here and be sent up into a void bloom reservoir. So we can get rid of that. Get rid of this completely. Okay. We'll have all of this be red sand and amethyst. Also, my mouse is about to run out of charge, so please do apologize the USB dings if I forget to get rid of those. On this side, I want something along these lines. Actually, we don't need it to be too tall. That should be fine. We want that moving through. I would like a little bit of texture to that area. That looks nice. And we are going to bring this all the way up and down. Much as I have done over here. Now at this point, I'm going to delete that. Now, once all of this is out of the way, the void bloom's just going to move all the way through, which is not what we want, until I've got that area ready. So we're going to want that to come across to about here. All the way up, and a little bit of shaping there as well. And over here, we're going to want to allow void bloom through, and only void bloom. About to over there. I think that's good enough. And this is the point where that chamber is going to be complete. We can bring that up around here. Down on both sides, just for the aesthetics of it. There we go. And then somewhere in the middle here, let's cross these. Find the midpoint. It is even. That is unfortunate. I'm going to need that to be 1 tile further across then. Otherwise this will not work. So we'll go with shift, grab all of this, shift it by 1 tile, delete that, just to make it look better. We want this again to only allow through void bloom. And we will rebuild the flux emanator. And at that point, we more or less have everything we need. So I can just remove all of this, allow everything else to filter down. And I need to add in a little bit more of a filter at the top, but we should be fine. There we go. Add this in there. And then delete all of this. We want Amethyst to be allowed in on this side. And we want red sand to be allowed in on this side. And this should churn. Meaning that void bloom should eventually get down to the bottom. That's the hope at any rate. We'll see if it actually does work, but it should do. And the void bloom will all filter through onto this side and then just spread out. It seems to spread out much more aggressively, almost more like a liquid, which kind of makes sense in a lot of ways. Right, with the rest of that done, time for me to finish off the cinder on this side. So let me just pop that right there. That should filter through correctly. Just very carefully deposit it here. Make sure we get all of that in the correct location. I obviously cannot just drop it up there because it would catch fire thanks to the already converted lava. That little hauler has been doing some amazing work. Well done, little hauler. The red sand will filter through on this side. There we go. I could be fancy and just have them alternate. Kind of like the idea of that, actually. Shock horror. Me liking being fancy. Gotta make sure they're all pointing the right way, though. Because it would be very easy for me to not do that. There you go. That should ensure that we get the red sand through there correctly. And the final one now. Should be the last delivery of cinder here. And then the rest we'll put back down here. That will hopefully get through. It seems to be moving ever closer to the bottom, but we'll find out. Let's grab all of this, drop it back, and go light that on fire. Though, as we can see, it isn't necessary. We've definitely already... Well, that being said, actually, okay, never mind. It was just as I was about to say, nothing ever gets through here. One did. Though I would hazard to say that at this point, it's not going to be possible for them to. Because we are more or less just delivering it, you know, one tile at a time on this side. That works. This is now moving correctly. And we've got, again, a practically limitless supply of the endgame currency. Okay, there we go. All the red sand being sent up to the factory. Now, there's a bit of water down there as well, but most of the answer is turning into steam that's coming straight back down, which is a bit of a problem that I will resolve eventually, but not right now. Instead, we are heading elsewhere. We've also got a little bit of water over there that I need to deal with, it seems. But yeah, that water shouldn't be making its way back down this path. I think there may be a clog in there somewhere, and that's something I'm going to have to fix relatively soon. Now, we can see over there's a bit of sand there, so I'm strongly suspecting that route links up. In fact, I kind of know that it does, and that is something that we're going to want to tap into relatively soon. But I am also noticing that we are very much out of pump water to pump, so going to need to set something up to remedy this situation relatively quickly, lest we hit a massive soft lock up top. I want to get rid of all of this if I can. We're not going to be using pumps to move this water. I'll more than likely either freeze it or evaporate it using the flamethrower, I think. Now, at this point, plenty of red sand going up there, and barely any regular sand. We've actually managed to empty the mines quite a lot. We are going to need to run this pipe down this way, though, I'm thinking, and hook up to the various bodies of water deeper into the mine. I'm fairly certain there's one down in this direction. In fact, yeah, no, we haven't tapped into this one yet. There's a lot of frozen ice over here that we should be able to use to top up our water situation. There we go. Realistically speaking, you're never going to run out of water in this game. Not unless you are... I'm not even sure how you'd be able to spend it frivolously. If I'm perfectly honest, I would be so surprised. It would be bordering on impressed if you managed to use up all the water. Right, let's get all of this gone. Unfortunately, the moment I start getting into the water itself, I'm going to simply start converting it to steam. There we go. And we've hooked into this water source. Let's try and get that. Thank heavens we can breathe underwater. Right, let's drop down some lights. This will... Ah, of course. They won't allow me to. Sad. However, that does work, which I will accept. Can't get in on that side. Imagine I would need to empty this out completely to do that, but we'll see. Can I fit in? No. Bit of a shame, but okay. Still, we've got a lot of water down here that I'm going to need to get out of here. And plenty of steam too. Right, I'm going to start setting up some pumps, and we'll thaw out the rest of the ice as well. Well, looks like we can keep going down, so let's go ahead. Ah, red sand. My old friend. And immune red sand as well. Can we really not get rid of it? There we go. What about you? There we go. Perfect. All right. Well, in that case, then, we will start launching all of this up. This went down a bit further than I was tracking, and I think... Well, we'll leave this route for now. I'll just do a little bit of excavating. There we go. We're going to want to set up something moving this along. We're going to need to start a little bit higher up, though. There we go. And something moving it along in this direction also. And then just have some launches to push this back into the stack as the time comes. Right, there we are. Okay, so let's start making our way across to the lava face. There we go. That is a gigantic pile of sand that is going to take an absolutely stupid amount of time to move over there. At this point, I might as well just grab a little bit of the wet sand over here. There we go. Just shimmy that on up. We've even got some of the red, well, actually quite a lot of the red sand, since it seems to sink through most other sands. So it's going to be one of the last ones to get thrown up top. Now, drones are doing their best to get all of this cleared. It's going to take a little while for all of that to be moved. But let's go up and check in on the base. I can see from the fact that this isn't going down anymore that we're not hurting for water, at the very least. And hopefully that's going to be continuing to be the case for a good long while. We've still got a little reservoir of water right there. I could move this out, and I guess I will. I may as well just get that out of there, then it can rain back down in some capacity. There we go. Take me a little bit of time to do though. I wish there was a late game technology that would allow you to move through bedrock. At this point, the exploration, or at least between two areas that are well lit. Maybe you don't want to allow someone to just literally fly all across the map, you know, no clipping through everything, but it is a little bit of a chore. Well, maybe a better way of doing it would be something like a teleport. Something you can set up in your base and then use a teleporter, maybe with a decent amount of cooldown, to make it so that traveling back from an excavation trip isn't quite so slow of a thing to do. Now, if we have a look back here, looking good, looking very good actually. The slag, I'm not seeing any unburnt slag making it down there. This is moving well. Only the wet spores are getting through here. I'm seeing... Okay, so this is a bit of a problem then. That is completely filled up on that side. Right. An issue. Definitely an issue. Given that... I mean, eventually the red sand would move all the way down to the bottom, but that isn't exactly the best scenario for us. That being said, though, look at all of this. Oh, my lord. We've got too much gold. We've got a mountain of gold. 14,000 gold currently. I approve. But we are clearly going to need to expand our gold mine. Like, massively so. Let's continue to extract all of the fluxite. There we go. Click. No. Rocket loaded. There we are. And one more. Pop. Alright, well, evidently I need a much, much bigger area to store all of our gold, so let's make one. I think this should be enough. Maybe. We'll see. We want this to only allow gold through. I can go all the way over there. And then this one can be a little angled piece over here. Bring this up. One thing I think is wise to do, and I didn't do initially, which was a bit of a silly mistake on my part, just in case any steam gets up here, make sure it can leave and not get into the gold vault, because if it does get in there, there's not a lot you can do about it. Right, also, that seems to be an artifact from saving, so I'm just going to get rid of that and rebuild all of this in one go. Let's get all the way up to the top. Pop. There we go. That's going to make a very satisfying noise for a little while. The other bit of automation that I did mention was automated sand washing. Rather than having it go down into this reservoir down here. And I think that makes sense. Let's go ahead and set that up, shall we? So for the sand washing, because sand will sink, you don't need to have as many interesting systems as with the spores. It's literally just you deliver water up top. You don't need a lot of water for it either. You don't need to do much more than this. You are going to need a launcher at the far side just to get it back out, because if you don't have this there, the water would just spill, overspill rather. And then once again down the bottom on this side. There we go. Right, that should, if we're lucky, work. We'll see. But that should remove the possibility of there ever being dry sand going over there. That has caused a lot of problems, and I've not properly reviewed that for a while. Otherwise, we could have had this being much more effective. That should get me all of the fluxite. Right. Let's go and check in. Extended range flamethrower. Take that all the way. And now it's just a case of saving up to get all of the upgrades for the drones. Now, that is something that I'm probably not going to invest in. If I'm perfectly honest, there is very little reason to. But there are a couple last places for us to explore. One of them is over here. Okay, I missed that one a little bit. And in we go. Game. There we go. Had to catch up a little bit. But as you can see, some fluxite, a decent amount of potential sand over here, which is... It comes with its own problems, I'm not going to lie. Especially now that we've set this system up as it is. So for the time being, I think we're just going to collect the fluxite and then move on. But that said, I am still going to be fairly thorough while I explore this area. It's still going. I had no idea it was this deep. My goodness. Okay, it looks like it's probably going to curve in a way that it can't continue much more than this. This has definitely changed since the last time I played. This was just a small, tiny, cute little cave, almost like a cave oasis, and now it is... I don't know what it is, actually. I've got theories, but nevertheless, here we are. A ridiculous amount of red sand. I will say again, I do not know how people are running out of red sand. It's a massive cave down here. All of the red sand is down at the bottom. It will be quite the chore in order to get it out, but considering how deep I had to dig to get it all, I don't think there was going to be an easy way for us to resolve that one. Right, as for the factory itself, let's have a quick look. I mean, that's still going through. It's going to take a little while for that to be the case. Red sand is way heavier than anything else, so it's going to get a priority on getting through. Oh, that is a bit of a problem there. I think what we're going to do here then is make that a regular conveyor. Just remove that through and allow it to get back into the system there. Right, we have got a little bit of fluxite for us to gather, so let's go ahead and do that. We're up to 16,542 right now, which is a very nice amount of money there. Right, in terms of the drones, I need 2,000 for the next big upgrade for the haulers, and I would like that to be the quantum propulsion. Oh, wow, the snow has actually started to really pile up down here. There we go, that's looking so much better now. All of the red sand should make its way through the system before anything else can. And so we are going to go back down and continue our excavation. The light at the end of the tunnel. We finally reached a point where it's no longer red sand. My lord. Also, I set up a bunch of new pumps in there in order to just get the last bits of water from the various nooks and crannies there are. And it looks like this may be it full circle. The final place for us to explore has led back to a place where we have already been. This has actually been quite informative, even for me. Despite the amount of time I put into the game, quite a lot has changed since the last time I played, which is really interesting for a demo. The amount of content in this game is truly just off the charts. There we go. Even though the overall story premise is actually quite simple in terms of like the actual quests that you have to complete. Still, I am very, very happy to have been able to go all the way through this and showcase all that the game currently has to offer. Though, that being said, there is, of course, one last thing that I promised to show you, and we will get into that in just a moment. But at this stage, as you've probably already seen, we've got enormous amount of resources just still distributed all across the map. Many places where I have not bothered to set up the collection and the automation in order to ferry the sand, especially the red sand, out. there is a lot more to do, even despite the fact that I have been playing now for coming up to quarter of a day, 6 hours in total. We've still got so much stuff to do. That should be fine. We are seeing a little bit of water dripping back through the mines, which is not the best, I must confess. I could possibly set something up in there in order to ferry into this little reservoir, but I'm not going to worry too much about that, if I'm honest. It's just that this is overflowing, and that's a good thing that it is, because that means that we've still got plenty of water just naturally available to the factory, so we wouldn't even really need to set up the infinite water glitch, but nevertheless, I would like to demonstrate how to do it. So, oh my lord, it's all the way down there. Fair enough. Right, so a lot of this comes down to finding the right spot along the wall over here. What you want is one where this makes a complete connection. And that is what we've got right there. We probably don't need it much more than this. And just for the sake of making it pretty, let's do that. Right, we want to take out all of that across there. And then we want to find another spot where we can make that connection still. Oh, you can. Oh. That's very interesting. It does actually connect. Huh. Does it always do that? No. There must be something about that being the side. Interesting. Let's, well, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter. This thing can go up here, wherever it wants to go. What we would want is a little bit of something like this, I'm thinking. To ensure that whilst a decent amount of the water will make it back in here, it always fills up this reservoir again, basically. You don't want it particularly deep, though. So something like this will be good enough. Let's just bring that out. So at the moment the water reaches this point, it'll start ferrying down. I do want to, well, I guess the steam coming from the main factory doesn't really matter if it makes its way in here, honestly, so that should be fine. We are going to want to bring all of the steam in here across, so we might as well just get rid of all of that at this point. And any steam that comes up through here, we are going to want to make its way into this area first, just to ensure that all of this does get filled up before any leftovers are sent to the rest of the factory. So something like that should do. Right, with that done, let's go and get that water into the system. Okay, I've more or less drained this entire reservoir now. And if we look up here, we've got plenty of water accumulated. Perfect. Right. At this stage, you just want to fire your napalm rocket, and it has to be the napalm rocket, at this wall. It might be possible to get this to work with a regular rocket, but I don't imagine it would. I'm just going to help this along a little bit. We want to get this up to a stable state and allow all of this steam to come through so that then we can measure whether or not I am creating more steam. More water than was there the first time. Okay, while I was waiting for the water to fill up over here, I checked in on the sand washer, which was completely broken, and I've switched it instead to a system where the water droppers are above the sand so that there is always water here. Well, the problem that we had is that the sand had completely filled out the lane, and so no more water was being added, and so dry sand was making it all the way through and then was just filtering back through again as soon as it was had gone into the system. So we created a completely closed loop. So this way, as long as there is water down here, there will be water up in this top section here because the sand can't get there, and so the top layer of sand will always get wet, and so hopefully that will fix that problem for us. Let's get rid of that and just make these look a bit nicer because I can. There we are. And over on this side then we are ejecting it back into the system as per usual. There we go. That should make the whole system work, and as you can see, everything is wet there. But we now have our test situation over here. Now, one of the things I would suggest with firing the rockets is wait for it to have completely hit before you fire the next one, because I'm not sure if the flames, when they hit the steam, destroy the steam. And if they do, then that's going to completely defeat the purpose of having this generate more water for you. Likewise, it might hit raindrops and do the same thing. I don't know. Because it does certainly interact with it. But what we want to see now is if those couple of rockets will cause the water level in this pond to exceed this and start draining out. And I'm going to say that just by looking at this, that's almost certainly going to be the case. So it does seem that you can still duplicate water fairly easily as the in the current system. So that shouldn't be a problem. You should never run out of water as a consequence. And if you want to see what I meant about the steam burning, I'll just fire 2 rockets fairly close together. Actually, we'll go for that autosave. Go for 3. Now, what should happen is some of the steam gets caught by flames. And so the flames don't get into the water. Or rather, the napalm, I guess, doesn't get into the water. As a consequence, it's not going to get the maximum amount of steam being produced per rocket, which is really what we're looking for there. And that's why the napalm rocket is so important, because each one of these can create a body of steam out of the explosion. But at this point, yeah, we've effectively got infinite water. We've got practically limitless red sand, stupid amounts of regular sand, and again, this one is actually more or less limitless. The plants, or at least it used to be the case that the plants, if you built them in such a way, would effectively just keep growing forever. You couldn't burn them faster than they could grow. I'm not sure if that has been curbed a little bit. I know that there were a couple of patch notes that described fixing the way that plants worked. They were, as I mentioned earlier, the end boss of the game. Honestly, you were more likely to stop playing because you were just tired of trying to deal with your plant problem than anything else, realistically speaking. Over here, yeah, we've just got wet spores. Lots of wet spores because we can't get rid of these petals. Bloody petals. They are holding everything up. That being said, over here, it doesn't look the best as is, so I'm probably going to just do this and add in Void Bloom to pass through. That way, this void bloom should be spread along. Rather than just having it all balanced from one side, it'll carry it across, making room, which should help out a little bit. If I made this much taller, this would probably work. And realistically speaking, there is no reason why I can't do that, I suppose. Just to get the whole system working again. Sure. Okay, let's try and do that. Now, what I would love to do is move the whole system down. But that would require relighting a new lava source. That wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, but this should be able to take care of itself now, though. Another thing I could do is create some agitators in here. Just effectively, they are a couple of tall launchers just to keep things moving around a little bit. But I don't think that will really help that much. Right, there's where you got to. Let's get all of that out of here, because that absolutely will gum up the machine. There we go. And that last one as well, please. There we are. All right, that should fix things for us. Grab that spore, drop that over there. And the flames will rise on their own, burn through the flowers at the top. More petals, more gold. And eventually we'll get through all of this wet spore. One day, possibly. It's going to take some time, though, I'm going to be honest, but it will happen. As for the sand and the red sand, that's on the move again. This has once more gummed up, unfortunately. Why exactly has that happened? Have we run out of water? No, we haven't. I see. It appears that the wet sand cannot sink below. I was expecting wet sand to be heavier, but it doesn't look like it is. Let's get rid of that. Pop that in there. I'm not sure if this will help, but we'll try it. It might allow for the wet sand to get filtered in. It does seem to be making a small bit of difference. We'll see. Certainly that is now all wet sand going up there. Yeah, it might have just been that I'm so used to having those angles there rather than hard edges that I've never actually observed that they were important for it. I just did it for looks, but there we go. And that finishes off the design. Alright, I think the factory is more or less where it needs to be. I don't think there's much more that I can add to the factory as it stands. We've got infinite water, we've got practically infinite resources. The factory is largely automated and with a couple of exceptions. And if there is interest in the future, then I could easily see myself popping back in to try and specifically build an efficient factory. Something that could run for dozens of hours without ever jamming up. But I'm pretty happy with what we've got as it is. We've got a literal mountain of gold over here. 20,000 gold, 3,405 fluxite, which I will immediately drop into drones. It's increase the speed of my drone fleet a little bit more. And more fluxite being made all the time as well. I can't actually move through the petals there, but that's fine. At this point, the only thing that we're seeing on the belt really is red sand, which is actually fantastically interesting. Oh, and on that note, before I go, because I completely missed this, we want to once again pop this back in and then alternate it with red sand. Just every now and then, just to make sure that we are in fact adding these things back in. Otherwise, we would never, ever get more void spawn once, void bloom once all of this was used up. But yeah, the agitators have made a tremendous improvement on this. We're now seeing void bloom filtering through quite aggressively, which is wonderful. But again, oh, I'm trapped. Bloody plants! Out of my way. Please. I'm free. Maybe free. Possibly not. Ah, the plants are growing too fast. Ah! Triffids! No! Find the Triffid heart! Let me out! Oh, phew. Okay. Escape. But yeah, we're mostly seeing red sand make it through to this point, which is exactly what we wanted to see. And we're generally not seeing spores getting hoovered up on that side either. We should mostly just see petals filtering through. Occasionally the petals will spawn at the top because they have no more room to spawn below. But even that, I'm not entirely sure is going to happen too frequently at this point. Let's go ahead and just remove all of that. There we go. That looks so much better. And yeah, pretty happy with this. Let me know in the comments what you think of Sandustry, and indeed if you would like to see a little bit more in the future. Sorry for the occasional napalm there on the plants. And we will see how this goes. I will definitely be revisiting once this game goes into full release, but there is possibility for a little bit more fun to be had with the demo as it stands. But that is going to be it from me for now. I really do hope you have enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the future. But until then, and as always, do take care, everyone. What, you thought I was going to leave without doing it? Really? Of course we're going to do a complete destruction of the factory just to see what happens and whether my computer crashes. That being said, it's going to be a little bit awkward to do. Let me choose the Demolisher tool. Now, it seems that this is focused on where I'm stood, which is a problem. So I'm not going to be able to do all of it all at once. So, you know what? Let's leave the gold for last. Let's start at the very, very far side. First, I'm going to disable any more being added to the factory because this would just be nightmarish if that were the case. And then let's begin from the bottom up. All of the water may as well. All gone. Let's get it all. Let's see what of a kind of mess we can create by unleashing all of the physics. Surprisingly, not seeing much of a frame drop, actually. I'm not... Wow, okay. This is actually one of the first time I've done this. So I've done it once before, and it was with a significantly smaller factory. I was genuinely expecting this to break something, but it seems that the Sandustry engine is quite robust. I'm impressed. All right. Time for the gold. Release the mountain. Can't see how much gold I have anymore. Very sad, but oh well. We're gonna... We are literally... A river of gold is going through that steam. There we go. That is all that is left of our factory. A couple of embers, bits of lava all over the place. So that's what those little sparks are. We've got lava over there. The gold mountain is still flowing. That's not how physics... Okay, you know what? That's fine. We'll let it wait. It's molten gold after all, considering the lava. And the cinder. Actually, I could probably set the cinder on fire as well. Let's go ahead and set the cinder on fire. And also melt the snow. Okay. I think that might be it. I'm going to go and hang out with the dev's cat. Oh. We brought the dev's cat some water. Hopefully it was thirsty. But that's going to be it for me for real this time. Thank you ever so much for sticking with me. This has been an incredibly long video. I have no idea how I'm going to edit it. I'm probably going to make it a bit of a long video. So if you have, in fact, made it to this point in the video, to the very end, let me know what you think about having extremely long-form videos like this, where we just do a bunch of things and let it go for it. I have no idea what's going on over here. Oh, I think I understand now. The void bloom is happening. All right. Nature is reclaiming this land. But do let me know down in the comments what you thought of this long video. No doubt going to be a long video. We're also evaporating all of the water down there. And indeed what you think about Sandustry as a whole. But that is going to be it for me for real. Take care, everyone.